Perhaps when we think of a medieval marketplace, most of us picture little more than muddy cobblestone streets lined with wooden stalls overflowing with loaves of bread, salted fish, wool, and fragrant spices, where the cries of merchants mingle with the sound of horses' hooves and the distant ringing of church bells. But if that is all you see, then tonight, let us take a few steps deeper, not only into history, but also into the depths of the human mind. For every ancient marketplace was far more than a place where goods were exchanged. It was where fear met hope, where greed stood face to face with honor, where people learned to place their trust in strangers, and where humanity's oldest instincts quietly shaped the foundations of an entire civilization. The psychologist Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Perhaps the medieval marketplace was one of the clearest expressions of that collective unconscious. There, thousands of people who had never met still shared the same concerns: how to feed their families, how to clothe them, how to find fairness, whom to trust, and how to secure a better future. Behind every loaf of bread, every small coin, every iron weight, and every seemingly ordinary bargain lay a much larger story. A story about how human beings gradually learned to live together. On tonight's journey, we will wander through more than 100 fascinating facts about the marketplaces of the Middle Ages. We will meet merchants who traveled hundreds of miles along roads haunted by bandits, discover why the ringing of a market bell could determine justice for an entire town, learn how loaves of bread were protected by law, witness court hearings held in the middle of bustling market squares, follow fishmongers as they rose long before dawn, and uncover how these humble marketplaces quietly helped shape the cities, kingdoms, and ultimately the civilization of Europe as we know it today. If you enjoy slow journeys through history where every story not only reveals the past, but also helps us better understand ourselves through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, then you have come to exactly the right place. Welcome to our channel, where history is not simply told, but gently listened to, like a soothing melody before sleep. Before we begin our journey, if stories like these bring you a sense of peace, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a warm greeting in the comments below. Every subscription not only helps us continue creating new historical journeys, but also brings together kindred spirits who cherish quiet reflection in this vast and ever-changing world. And now, make yourself as comfortable as you can. Let your shoulders slowly relax. Take a long, gentle breath in, and softly breathe out. Allow the worries of today to gradually dissolve into the night, while just ahead of us, the first oil lamps of a medieval marketplace begin to glow, inviting you into a world that has slept peacefully for centuries, yet still has so many stories waiting to be told. The world of medieval marketplaces. If you had wandered along a quiet dirt road nearly 1,000 years ago, making your way toward a small European town in the soft light of early morning, perhaps the first thing to awaken your senses would not have been the towering castle walls or the distant ringing of church bells. It would have been the marketplace. Long before you reached it, you could already hear the steady rhythm of horses' hooves striking the stone, the slow creaking of wooden cartwheels rolling through the mud, and the voices of people calling to one another in accents from many different regions. The warm scent of freshly baked bread blended with the fragrance of herbs, the earthy aroma of freshly shorn wool still carrying the memory of open pastures, and the comforting smoke rising from stalls serving hot meals. This was far more than a place where goods were bought and sold. It was the heartbeat of an entire community. For the people of the Middle Ages, the marketplace was almost as important as their own home. If the home sustained a single family, the marketplace sustained an entire town. Nearly everything essential to daily life either began or ended here. Farmers arrived carrying baskets filled with eggs, bundles of fresh vegetables, and wheels of cheese made before sunrise. Blacksmiths displayed nails, plowshares, and newly forged knives, whose polished steel still caught the morning light. Cloth merchants carefully unrolled soft woolen fabrics that had traveled from distant lands. Every item represented countless days of labor and carried with it the quiet hope of a better life. Yet if we notice only the merchandise, we miss the most remarkable truth about the medieval marketplace. Behind every exchange existed an invisible network of trust. When someone placed a coin into the hand of a stranger, they were not simply purchasing a loaf of bread or a piece of cloth. They were placing their faith in the honesty of the merchant, in the value of the currency, and in the shared rules accepted by the entire community. Perhaps this is why Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Every encounter in the marketplace reflected this quiet transformation. The buyer and the seller both departed with more than they had brought. One gained food, the other earned a livelihood. But together, they nourished something even greater: the social bonds that held their community together. Perhaps what made medieval marketplaces truly extraordinary was not the abundance of goods, but their ability to connect people whose lives rarely crossed. A farmer might spend an entire month tending nothing but his own fields. A shepherd living high on a hillside might seldom meet anyone from the town. Yet on market day, those distances seemed to disappear. They gathered together to exchange goods, share stories of the harvest, speak of newly opened roads, tell of merchant caravans arriving from the south, or pass along news concerning the king. In an age without newspapers, telephones, or the internet, the marketplace became the largest network of information humanity had yet created. From Jung's perspective, human beings are guided not only by material needs, but also by a deep longing to belong to something greater than themselves. He described this as the power of the collective unconscious, where shared symbols and common experiences quietly unite individuals. Perhaps the marketplace was one of its most vivid expressions. Week after week, hundreds of people found themselves drawn toward the same familiar place. No one commanded them to feel connected, yet many sensed they belonged to something far larger than their individual lives. And yet, the marketplace was not only a place of warmth and fellowship, it was also where the rule of law became most visible in everyday life. The market bell announced exactly when buying and selling could begin. Officials inspected weights and measures to ensure fairness. Those caught cheating could be punished before the eyes of the crowd. Disputes between buyers and merchants were often settled openly in the public square. These customs reveal a fascinating truth. Civilizations are not built first by battles or by kings upon their thrones, but by creating conditions in which strangers can trust one another. A marketplace can flourish only where fairness exists, and a society can prosper only when trust grows stronger than fear. If you listen closely, you may discover that every sound within the marketplace tells its own story. The ringing bell that opens the market does more than summon buyers, it awakens a shared sense of order. The voices engaged in bargaining are more than negotiations over price. They reflect the delicate art of balancing personal interest with fairness toward another. Even the quiet moments at the end of the day, when stalls are carefully dismantled one by one and the marketplace slowly returns to silence, remind us that life always moves according to its own gentle rhythm. Tonight, we will do more than learn a collection of historical facts or memorize dates from a textbook. We will step into the world of medieval marketplaces, as though entering an ancient dream, where every cobblestone still remembers the footsteps of millions who once hoped, worried, loved, and worked to sustain their lives. Together we will discover how a simple loaf of bread could become a reflection of justice, how a small iron weight could safeguard the honor of an entire town, and how seemingly ordinary encounters quietly helped shape the history of Europe itself. For in the end, History has never belonged solely to kings or to great battles. It has also been written by the woman selling bread from the corner of the marketplace, the blacksmith bending over his glowing forge, the young boy carrying a basket of eggs beside his mother from a distant village, and the merchant who quietly traveled hundreds of miles in search of a better future for his family. And perhaps, when we look upon them through the eyes of Carl Gustav Jung, we begin to recognize that across the centuries, human beings have always searched for the very same things. A place where they belong, a community they can trust, and a hope strong enough to carry them gently into tomorrow. From a quiet village to a bustling market town, if you had the chance to stand upon a gentle hillside overlooking a small European village in the 13th century, on an ordinary day, you might find the scene almost perfectly still. Fields stretched peacefully beneath the pale morning sun. Thin ribbons of smoke drifted quietly from thatched rooftops. A few farmers bent over their furrows, tending the earth with practiced hands. The church bell rang slowly through the air, marking the passage of time with calm, unhurried certainty. Life seemed to move at a gentle pace. Each day flowed naturally into the next, shaped by familiar routines, by the endless rhythm of sowing and harvest, season after season, like an unbroken circle. But then, on the morning of market day, everything changed. Before the first light had fully spread across the fields, the quiet country roads began to fill with movement. A farmer pushed a wooden cart, piled high with vegetables freshly gathered from the harvest. A woman carefully nestled eggs into a basket lined with straw to keep them from breaking along the journey. In the distance, the soft tinkling of small bells hanging from the necks of packhorses announced their slow approach toward the town. Blacksmiths carried newly forged knives, hoes, and horseshoes. Weavers folded their finely crafted woolen cloth with great care. Merchants from distant regions arrived with spices, salt, and exotic goods that many villagers had never laid eyes upon before. Amid them all, travelers continued their long journeys, pausing for a little while to rest, exchange goods, and share stories gathered from lands far beyond the horizon. Within only a few short hours, the peaceful village seemed to awaken from a long and quiet sleep. Roads that had once been empty grew crowded with people. Laughter and conversation replaced the familiar silence. Small market squares became seas of faces, the air filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread, the scent of dried hay, the rich smell of tanned leather, the freshness of newly cut timber, and the warm, spicy fragrance rising from sacks of herbs and precious seasonings just opened for trade. On ordinary days, this place might have seemed like little more than a tiny dot upon a map. Yet on market day, it became the living center of an entire region. What is especially fascinating is that, for medieval people, market day was never merely an economic event. It was a ritual of everyday life. It returned week after week with remarkable regularity, as dependable as the ringing of church bells or the turning of the seasons themselves. People did not need paper calendars to know what day it was. They simply knew that when the sun rose on a Tuesday or a Thursday morning, the road leading into town would once again be filled with travelers. That dependable rhythm created a profound sense of stability within a world that was otherwise filled with uncertainty. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Perhaps the rhythm of the medieval marketplace offers one of the clearest illustrations of those words. To an outside observer, the market appeared wonderfully chaotic. Buyers and sellers pressed together in lively crowds. Voices bargaining over prices rose from every direction. Children darted between the stalls, while wagons rolled carefully past bread vendors and craftsmen. Yet beneath that vibrant energy existed an invisible order. Everyone knew when they were expected to arrive. Every merchant knew whom they would meet. Every farmer understood that this was the moment to transform the fruits of months of labor into coins that would provide for their family in the days ahead. This, too, reflects something Jung often observed about the human psyche. We depend upon cycles, rituals, and familiar patterns to reassure us that the world remains understandable and predictable. The weekly marketplace was one such collective ritual. It allowed hundreds, sometimes even thousands of people to share the same rhythm of life. In an age before precise clocks and digital calendars, the marketplace itself became the community's clock. Every person entered the marketplace with a different purpose, yet together they created a single living tapestry. Farmers brought the gifts of the land. Skilled craftsmen carried the products of years spent perfecting their trade. Merchants introduced treasures from distant regions. Travelers arrived bearing news, stories, and sometimes entirely new ideas. No one was completely self-sufficient. No one could truly thrive alone. The marketplace quietly reminded everyone that each person's life was deeply intertwined with the lives of others. If you look even more closely, you may notice that every road leading toward the marketplace resembled an artery flowing toward a shared heart. From villages hidden among forests, from farms beside winding rivers, and from small towns nestled behind rolling hills, people traveled toward the same familiar gathering place. Then, as the afternoon sun slowly leaned toward the western sky, they returned home, carrying not only goods, but also news, stories, and fresh experiences. The marketplace came to an end, yet its influence continued to ripple outward throughout the entire week that followed. Perhaps this is what made medieval marketplaces so much more significant than we often imagine today. They did not merely transport goods, they carried hope. A plentiful harvest could bring joy to an entire family. A successful trading journey might allow a craftsman to expand his workshop. A chance meeting could become the beginning of a business partnership lasting decades. Every market day carried within it the possibility of changing someone's life. As evening settled over the land, the wooden carts quietly departed from the square once more. Stalls were dismantled one after another. The cheerful voices gradually faded, giving way to the familiar stillness of the village. Everything seemed to return to the peaceful calm it had known before, as though nothing extraordinary had happened at all. Yet within the memories of those who had been there, the marketplace remained alive. It lingered in the stories shared around evening fires, in the carefully guarded coins tucked inside worn leather pouches, in the fresh loaf of bread resting upon the table, in the newly purchased cloth carried home, and in the quiet anticipation that only a few days later, when the bells rang once again, the entire region would awaken to the vibrant rhythm of another market day. Perhaps that is the greatest wonder of the medieval marketplace. It transformed a humble village into the center of an entire world, not through towering walls or magnificent palaces, but through its remarkable ability to bring people closer to one another. And perhaps, somewhere deep within the collective unconscious that Carl Jung so often described, we are still searching for that same feeling today, the quiet comfort of stepping into a place where every unfamiliar face gently reminds us that we are never truly alone on the journey of being human. The authority that created a marketplace. At first glance, a medieval marketplace seems as though it came into being almost effortlessly. A few farmers arrive with baskets of fresh vegetables. A handful of craftsmen display the goods they have carefully made, and several merchants pause during their long journeys. Before long, the village square is alive with activity. Yet the reality was far more complex. Behind every thriving marketplace stood an intricate system of authority, carefully established over time, where every stall, every coin exchanged, and every step taken by a customer was connected to law, property rights, and decisions made far beyond the bustling square itself. In the medieval world, not every village was free to establish its own marketplace. For a market to be recognized as lawful, it generally had to receive a royal charter, an official grant issued by the king, or another authorized ruler. This was far more than a sheet of parchment bearing the royal seal. It was a declaration that the location had been granted the legal right to become an official meeting place for buyers and sellers, protected by the law, and governed under a shared order. From a single document, the destiny of an entire region could be transformed. Today, we often believe that the value of a place lies in its geography or its natural resources. But during the Middle Ages, the privilege of holding a market could be even more valuable than fertile farmland. Once a royal charter had been granted, the roads leading into the town gradually became busier. Merchants were drawn there. Inns were built to welcome weary travelers. Blacksmiths, carpenters, bakers, and weavers slowly chose to settle nearby. Within only a few years, a quiet village could grow into a prosperous market town. What brought about this remarkable transformation was not magic, but the confidence people gained from knowing that the law would protect them and that the future offered a place where they could invest their hopes. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." Perhaps these words also capture the spirit behind the creation of a medieval marketplace. A royal charter represented reason, law, and authority. Yet what truly gave it life were the hopes and emotions of countless ordinary people. Farmers found reassurance in knowing they had a reliable place to sell the fruits of their labor. Merchants trusted that their goods would be protected. Skilled craftsmen saw the possibility of building lasting livelihoods. It was this quiet union of order and hope that became the foundation upon which an entire community could flourish. Of course, the right to establish a marketplace also meant the right to benefit from it. Merchants who wished to set up a stall generally paid a fee for their trading space. Wagons entering the town with goods might be required to pay tolls. Certain transactions carried additional charges. Those who violated market regulations could be fined, and those fines became another source of revenue for the market's lord or administrator. To medieval lords, the marketplace was not only a symbol of authority, it was also an economic engine that worked steadily, week after week. What is especially fascinating is that these lords rarely sold a loaf of bread or a bolt of cloth themselves. They did not need to stand behind a market stall in order to profit. Simply by controlling the marketplace, they benefited from hundreds of exchanges taking place every single day. This reveals one of history's most enduring lessons about power. True authority does not always come from creating value directly. Often, it comes from creating the conditions in which value can be exchanged. Seen through the lens of Jungian psychology, this reflects one of the oldest archetypes within the collective unconscious, the archetype of the king. Across many cultures, the king is not merely the strongest individual, he is the guardian of order, the one who preserves the conditions under which a community can prosper. A marketplace can survive only when someone upholds the law, settles disputes, and ensures that strangers are able to trust one another. Without order, chaos soon replaces fair exchange. And once trust disappears, the marketplace itself gradually fades away. Perhaps this is why the Royal Charter was never simply a legal document. It also carried deep psychological meaning. It quietly assured people that here there were laws, protection, and a future worth believing in. In a world where war, disease, and banditry were constant threats, the feeling of safety was among the greatest forms of wealth anyone could possess. People did not come to the marketplace solely to buy and sell. They came because they believed it would still be there tomorrow. Viewed from this perspective, it becomes easier to understand why so many modern European towns began with nothing more than a modest market square. Taxes collected from trade helped build roads, bridges, and defensive walls. Stall rental fees supported the maintenance of public order. The regular arrival of merchants encouraged more people to settle nearby. Houses gradually appeared around the square. Churches, workshops, schools, and eventually administrative buildings followed. Little by little, a simple marketplace became the beating heart of a growing town. This reminds us that a city is not born merely from stone or from walls. It is born from human encounters. Every time two people exchanged goods, they also exchanged trust. Every time a merchant decided to return for the following week's market, he was quietly casting a vote of confidence in that town's future. Week after week, thousands of seemingly ordinary decisions made by ordinary people slowly gave rise to towns and cities that would endure for centuries. As evening settled after another market day, the square gradually returned to silence. Market stalls were taken down. Coins were carefully tucked away into worn leather pouches. Yet beneath that peaceful stillness, the authority of the royal charter continued its quiet work. It did not need to raise its voice or stand before a crowd. Its presence lived in every road leading toward the town, in every new home that was built, in every family that chose to settle there, and in every child who grew up surrounded by a community that became more vibrant with each passing year. Perhaps this is the most beautiful legacy left behind by the marketplaces of the Middle Ages. The greatest form of power is not the ability to compel people through force, but the ability to create a place where they willingly gather, exchange, and build a shared future together. And perhaps, as Carl Jung gently suggested, it was within these common spaces that the collective unconscious of an entire civilization was quietly nourished, allowing Europe itself to gradually become a world connected by law, trust, and hope. The Champagne fairs and the birth of European commerce. If the small marketplaces were the heartbeat of individual villages, then the Champagne fairs were perhaps the very heart of medieval Europe itself. For centuries, the Champagne region in northeastern France was celebrated not only for its fertile countryside, but also for the remarkable fairs that transformed the way people exchanged goods, built trust, and connected lands that had once seemed impossibly distant from one another. Tonight, imagine that we are walking together along a long country road covered in fine dust. Ahead of us rise the sturdy stone buildings of the towns of Troyes and Provins. From every direction, long caravans of merchants quietly make their way toward the same destination. They come from England with bales of soft wool. They arrive from the Italian city-states carrying shimmering rolls of silk. From the distant east, after passing through countless seaports and joining long merchant caravans, precious sacks of spices filled with the rich fragrances of black pepper, cinnamon, and cloves have traveled thousands of miles to gather here as well. During the few weeks in which the fairs were held, it almost seemed as though all of Europe breathed together in a single rhythm. The remarkable thing is that no one could create the Champagne fairs through determination alone. They emerged from countless journeys, countless promises, and countless meetings between people who had never known one another. A shepherd tending sheep on the hills of England would likely never meet the weaver working in an Italian workshop. A pepper grower in the distant east could hardly imagine who would one day savor the spice harvested from his fields. Yet all of them became connected through an invisible network whose center was these extraordinary fairs. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." These words are often quoted in the context of psychology, yet when we reflect upon them more deeply, they also reveal a profound historical truth. When people from many different cultures gathered at Champagne, they did not simply encounter the differences of others, they gradually came to understand themselves more clearly as well. These exchanges transformed far more than purses filled with coins. They expanded humanity's understanding of the world. An English merchant might touch fine Italian silk for the first time. A French trader might inhale the warm fragrance of cinnamon carried from the East. An Italian merchant could discover the exceptional quality of English wool. Every encounter quietly stretched the boundaries of human perception. Today, we are accustomed to goods traveling across the world in a matter of days. But during the 12th and 13th centuries, every roll of silk arriving at Champagne represented months, sometimes even years, of travel across mountains, seas, and lands filled with uncertainty and danger. Every sack of spices carried not only precious aromas, but also the footsteps of countless merchants, sailors, and laborers. Even what appeared to be an ordinary piece of woolen cloth reflected the work of shepherds, shearers, spinners, weavers, and transporters. The Champagne fairs became the place where all of these separate journeys finally converged. For this reason, Champagne was far more than a large marketplace. It resembled a great river, into which countless smaller streams from across Europe flowed before continuing onward together. Goods traveled alongside money. Money traveled alongside ideas, and ideas quietly reshaped an entire civilization. New weaving techniques, methods of commercial accounting, systems of bookkeeping, and architectural styles spread almost unnoticed through the movements of merchants. The fairs therefore became places where knowledge was exchanged just as readily as merchandise. It did not take long for the influence of these gatherings to spread throughout the surrounding countryside. As increasing numbers of merchants arrived, the demand for inns, warehouses, stables, repair workshops, and lodging grew rapidly. Land that had once been little more than open fields gradually became far more valuable. New homes were built, roads were widened, bridges were constructed. More and more services appeared to accommodate the endless flow of visitors. The value of the land increased, not because the soil had become more fertile, but because people had discovered a reason to gather there together. This reveals one of history's most fascinating patterns. Sometimes, what makes a place prosperous is not what lies beneath the ground, but the relationships built upon its surface. A crowded marketplace can generate greater wealth than vast fields of farmland. A safe road may prove more valuable than an untouched mineral deposit. The Champagne fairs demonstrated that the greatest wealth of any economy does not reside in its goods alone, but in its ability to connect people. Through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology, this brings to mind the concept of the collective unconscious. Every individual carries unique experiences. Yet when people come together, they create a network of meaning that is greater than themselves. The Champagne fairs reflected this principle beautifully. No single merchant possessed the power to create European commerce. Yet thousands of merchants, each contributing only a small part, collectively built a system that exceeded the imagination of any one individual. It was the quiet strength of community, cooperation, and trust accumulated across generations. As time passed, these fairs became far more than seasonal centers of trade. They evolved into powerful engines of regional development. The towns surrounding Champagne flourished, populations increased, skilled crafts expanded, currency circulated more freely. The earliest forms of commercial credit gradually emerged to support increasingly sophisticated transactions. What had begun with a handful of market stalls in an open square ultimately helped lay the foundations of the European economy that would follow. As night slowly settles over the Champagne region, torches begin to glow around the marketplace. The sounds of bargaining soften into gentle murmurs. Rolls of silk are carefully stored inside sturdy wooden chests. Bales of wool are covered to protect them from the evening dew. The fragrance of spices still lingers in the cool night air, and amid that peaceful silence, it becomes difficult not to recognize that the greatest treasure of the fair was never merely the goods being bought and sold. Its greatest value lay in the invisible bridges built between one human being and another. Perhaps this is the gentle lesson history offers us. A civilization does not grow through wealth alone. It grows through its capacity to create meaningful connections. And perhaps, as Carl Jung quietly suggested, within each seemingly ordinary encounter, we are not only discovering a wider world, we are also, step by step, discovering the deepest places within our own souls. The wandering merchants on the roads of uncertainty. When we think of medieval marketplaces, our attention is usually drawn to the destination, the lively town squares, the market stalls, overflowing with goods, and the cheerful voices of buyers and sellers filling the air. Yet behind every roll of woolen cloth, every sack of spices, every iron bar, and every carefully crafted clay vessel resting upon a merchant's table, lies a much longer story. It is the story of merchants who spent weeks, sometimes even months, crossing muddy roads, shadowed forests, and fragile bridges to bring their goods to places where they hoped to find a brighter future. If the marketplace was the heart of the medieval economy, then these wandering merchants were its lifeblood, quietly carrying vitality from one corner of the land to another. Imagine an autumn morning some 800 years ago. A gentle mist still blankets the fields as a caravan of pack horses quietly leaves the gate of a small town. Leather packs are tightly fastened to each horse, filled with wool, salt, beeswax, and precious rolls of cloth. The merchant has no way of knowing exactly how many days lie between him and his destination. He knows only that hundreds of miles of rough roads stretch ahead, where every rainfall may transform the path into a sea of mud, every forest may conceal bands of robbers, and every bridge becomes a test of both courage and patience. For us today, traveling between cities in just a few hours feels almost effortless. But for people of the Middle Ages, every journey was a gamble. There were no accurate maps, no modern transportation, no reliable weather forecasts. Merchants relied upon experience, stories passed from traveler to traveler, and the quiet hope that the road they had chosen would lead them to a thriving marketplace rather than a dangerous dead end. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." Perhaps every journey undertaken by a medieval merchant was also a journey inward. Along those endless roads, far removed from the familiar sounds of the marketplace and the safety of home, a person was inevitably confronted by his deepest fears: the fear of robbery, the fear of failure, the fear of losing everything to a violent storm or a bridge swept away by floodwaters. Yet it was upon those same roads that merchants discovered their courage, their perseverance, and their ability to place trust in those who traveled beside them. The roads of the Middle Ages were rarely smooth. After heavy rains, wooden cartwheels sank deep into thick mud, while horses struggled with every step. Some routes wound through dense forests where sunlight barely filtered through ancient branches overhead. Others climbed rugged hills that forced entire caravans to stop repeatedly for rest. This is why bridges were among the most valuable structures of the age. A single stone bridge crossing a river did far more than shorten a journey. It connected two economies, two communities, and sometimes two entirely different worlds. Eventually, the walls of a town appeared on the horizon. For the merchant, that sight brought both relief and uncertainty. After many days upon the road, the sturdy stone gates signaled arrival in a place protected by law. Yet it was also there that he would pause to declare his goods, pay taxes, and sometimes settle additional fees imposed upon outsiders. For medieval towns, these taxes were more than a source of income. They were a means of regulating the movement of both people and merchandise. For the merchant, they became the price of entering a new marketplace. One of the most remarkable features of this uncertain world is that very few merchants chose to travel alone. More often, they formed caravans, sharing expenses, hiring guards together, and above all, sharing risk. If one traveler lost a horse, the others could help. If a shipment failed to produce a profit, The burden of loss could be spread among several people instead of crushing one individual alone. This became one of the earliest and one of the wisest forms of commercial cooperation in medieval Europe. Jung often reminded us that human beings do not truly mature in isolation. We grow through relationships and through learning to trust one another. Merchant caravans embodied this truth. They traveled together not only to protect their goods but also to exchange stories around evening campfires, to share knowledge of safer roads, trustworthy marketplaces, and lessons learned through failure. Those quiet conversations, after long days of travel, gradually wove together a network of commercial knowledge that stretched across Europe. If we look even more closely, we begin to see that every merchant carried within him two journeys unfolding at once. One journey appeared upon the map, leading from one town to another. The other unfolded within the soul, where he slowly learned to accept the uncertainty of life itself. No one could know whether the next bridge still stood, or had already been swept away by floodwaters. No one knew whether the next fair would be crowded with eager customers or disappointingly quiet, yet still they continued forward. And perhaps it was this willingness to embrace uncertainty that became the source of their greatest strength. Over time, the roads these merchants traveled became far more than simple tracks across the countryside. They evolved into the vital arteries of Europe's growing economy. Bridges were repaired more frequently, inns appeared along the busiest routes, small settlements flourished near crossroads and town gates. Every step taken by a merchant carried not only goods toward their destination, but also encouraged the birth of entirely new communities. These travelers were far more than merchants. They were the quiet builders of connection, weaving distant places into a single, living world. As night gently settles over the countryside, the caravan stops beside a modest roadside inn. The merchandise is carefully covered with heavy cloth to protect it from the evening dew. The horses graze quietly in nearby fields. The merchant sits beside the warmth of the fire, listening to the wind whisper through the surrounding forest while thinking about the road still waiting ahead. Tomorrow he will cross another bridge, pass through another town gate, and meet people he has never known before. Yet he understands that it is precisely these encounters that continue to weave together the vast tapestry of European commerce. And perhaps this is the gentle lesson that history quietly leaves for us. Life itself is a long journey filled with bridges that must be crossed and gates that must be entered. We cannot remove every danger from our path, but we can learn to share its burdens with others. We cannot know everything that awaits us beyond the next horizon, yet we can continue forward with trust. For, as the wandering merchants of the Middle Ages silently demonstrated, it is along the most challenging roads that we learn how to connect with one another, and where we gradually discover the deepest well of strength hidden within our own souls. The laws that kept the marketplace fair. When we imagine a medieval marketplace, we often picture the lively sounds of bargaining, wagons piled high with goods, and an endless stream of people weaving between busy market stalls. Yet if you were to stand quietly and observe for a little longer, you would begin to notice that this lively scene was anything but chaotic. Behind every transaction, every coin laid upon a weathered wooden table, and every loaf of bread passed into a customer's hands, stood a carefully constructed system of laws and customs. The people of the Middle Ages understood a simple yet profound truth. A marketplace could survive only as long as people believed it was fair, and that trust did not arise by chance. It was nurtured day after day through laws, clear rules, and the honor of everyone who took part in trade. Each market day usually began with a familiar sound, the ringing of the market bell echoing across the town square. That sound did far more than announce the beginning of a new day. It proclaimed that the official hours of trade had begun. Before the bell rang, no merchant was permitted to quietly sell goods to favored customers or reserve the finest products for a select few. Everyone waited for the very same signal, and when the bell finally sounded, All trading began together, in one shared moment. What might seem like a small custom carried remarkable significance. Fairness begins when everyone starts from the same place. In a world without digital clocks or public announcement boards, the market bell became the voice of the law. It needed no lengthy explanation. The moment it rang, everyone understood that the marketplace had entered a period protected by legal authority. Buyers had the right to choose. Merchants had the right to conduct their business. Yet everyone was expected to follow the very same rules. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." At first glance, these words seem to speak only of self-discovery. But if we reflect more deeply, we may realize that people can truly live according to their values only when they exist within an environment that honors integrity. An honest merchant would find it difficult to remain honorable if dishonesty were tolerated all around him. For this reason, the law did not protect buyers alone. It also protected honest merchants from unfair competition. Perhaps no object symbolized fairness in the medieval marketplace more clearly than the weighing scale. Today, we think of a scale as nothing more than an ordinary measuring tool. But for medieval people, it was almost a symbol of moral character itself. A properly calibrated weight determined far more than the value of a sack of grain or a piece of cheese. It measured the trust shared between two people who had never met before. When a customer watched a merchant place goods upon a scale that had been officially inspected, they were not merely trusting the number it revealed. They were placing their faith in the entire community that had worked together to preserve its accuracy. For this reason, using false weights or dishonest measuring rods was considered one of the most shameful offenses in medieval commerce. A hollowed-out weight or a measuring stick, shortened by only a few millimeters, might bring a small profit to a dishonest merchant. Yet at the same time, it quietly weakened the very foundation of the marketplace itself. If customers could no longer trust today's scale, tomorrow they would no longer trust any merchant at all. And once trust disappeared, the marketplace gradually lost the very reason for its existence. What is especially striking is that punishments for fraud were rarely hidden from public view. They took place openly, in the crowded marketplace itself. False weights might be smashed before the eyes of the gathered crowd. Dishonest merchants could be publicly named or subjected to penalties intended to be witnessed by everyone. These punishments served a purpose far greater than making one individual pay for wrongdoing. More importantly, they reminded the entire community that honesty was not simply a personal choice, it was the essential condition upon which society itself depended. Carl Gustav Jung once observed, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." In their own way, the people of the Middle Ages seemed to understand this truth. They recognized that within every person lived the temptation of greed. No one was entirely immune to the desire to gain a little extra profit through dishonesty. Because of this, they did not rely solely upon personal virtue. They created rules, inspections, and penalties to help people overcome the shadow within themselves. Laws were not established because people were perfect. Laws existed because human beings are, by nature, imperfect. It is fascinating to realize that, in medieval commerce, honor was sometimes more valuable than wealth itself. A merchant might earn a few fewer coins by using honest measures, but if caught cheating, he risked losing something infinitely more precious, his reputation. In small communities where the same people met week after week, even a single rumor of dishonesty could follow someone for years. The stall would still stand in its usual place. The goods might remain just as fine as before, yet customers would quietly walk past without stopping. Once honor had been lost, it was rarely easy to regain. If we look more deeply, we may see that the marketplace scale measured more than merchandise. It measured people themselves. Every transaction became a quiet test of conscience. Would the merchant choose immediate profit or lasting trust? Would the customer offer a fair price? Or bargain so aggressively that another person could no longer earn a living from honest work? Each of these seemingly small decisions gradually shaped the character of an entire community. As the market day slowly drew to a close, the bell rang once again. The scales were carefully returned to their wooden chests. The bronze weights rested quietly after another day of faithfully performing their humble task. The marketplace gradually fell silent. Yet the values it had protected remained long after the crowds had gone. Not the coins that had changed hands, but the trust that had quietly passed from one person to another. Perhaps this is also the gentle message that history whispers to us on this peaceful night. A civilization is not built first through castles or mighty armies. It is built through honest scales, fair rules, and people who place their honor above immediate gain. And perhaps, as Carl Jung quietly suggested, every time we choose honesty in even the smallest of moments, we are not only helping to make the world a fairer place, we are also, step by step, shaping the deepest parts of our own souls: bread, food, and social justice. Among the countless goods displayed in medieval marketplaces, there was one humble item whose importance surpassed them all: the loaf of bread. For the poor, it was an entire day's meal. For the craftsman, it was the nourishment that allowed him to continue his work. For children, it was the reassuring sign that their family would not go to bed hungry that night. And for those who governed, the price of a loaf of bread could at times matter even more than the price of gold or silver. They understood that when bread became too expensive, the peace of an entire town began to tremble. Imagine a bitterly cold winter morning. A mother arrives at the marketplace carrying only a few precious coins, hoping to buy enough bread for her children. But today the price has risen since the previous week, not because the baker has suddenly become greedy, but because the price of grain has increased after a disappointing harvest. A single summer of drought, weeks of relentless rain, or an outbreak of crop disease could dramatically reduce the wheat harvest. From there, the consequences spread quietly into every kitchen, every dining table, and every household. The people of the Middle Ages understood this fragile connection remarkably well. For that reason, in many towns, authorities did not leave the price of bread entirely to the forces of the market. Regulations were established either to control its price or to adjust the size of each loaf according to the cost of grain. When wheat became scarce, instead of allowing prices to soar beyond the reach of ordinary people, bakers might be required to bake smaller loaves while maintaining a price that families could still afford. This was more than an economic policy. It was an effort to preserve the balance of society itself. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health." Yet perhaps he would also have agreed that hardship should never become an opportunity for some to profit from the suffering of others. For within every human being exist two forces side by side: the instinct for survival and the capacity for compassion. The character of a society is shaped by which of these forces it chooses to nurture. It is no coincidence that hoarding food during times of scarcity was often viewed with deep suspicion. After a poor harvest, some merchants might choose to store grain in their warehouses, waiting for prices to climb even higher before selling it. From the perspective of profit, such a decision could appear perfectly rational. Yet from the perspective of the community, every sack of grain withheld from the market might mean another family going hungry for one more day. For this reason, many medieval towns introduced strict regulations designed to prevent the stockpiling of food during periods of shortage. They understood that markets could not be guided by profit alone. They also had to be guided by responsibility. It is fascinating to realize that even the forests played an important role in the daily meals of ordinary people. Medieval forest laws carefully regulated hunting rights and the use of natural resources, Many forests belonged to the king or to local lords, preventing common villagers from freely hunting deer or wild boar, or gathering timber whenever they wished. This meant that even nature's food supply was shaped by the law. A deer roaming through the forest was never simply an animal. It was also a symbol of authority and of how resources were distributed within society. Alongside the stalls selling bread and grain, the livestock market formed another essential part of medieval economic life. Cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs were brought from surrounding farms to be traded. Buyers looked beyond an animal's size. They carefully observed its eyes, the condition of its coat, the way it walked, and even the rhythm of its breathing. They understood that a healthy animal might sustain a family for many years, while a sick one could bring devastating losses. For this reason, although medieval people knew nothing of microorganisms as we understand them today, many communities developed early forms of livestock inspection and quarantine. Animals showing signs of illness were often prohibited from entering the marketplace. These practices may be regarded as some of the earliest forms of veterinary quarantine, not because people understood infectious disease scientifically, but because generations of experience had taught them that caution was always wiser than regret. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." A loaf of bread may appear simple, yet its meaning reaches far beyond its material value. It represents life itself, honest labor, faith in the harvest, and the quiet hope that tomorrow there will still be enough food for one's family. When a society protects the bread of its poorest citizens, it is ultimately protecting its own foundation. Perhaps this is why the medieval marketplace was never merely a place of commerce. It also served as a mirror reflecting the condition of the entire community. When the grain stalls overflowed with abundance, people breathed more easily. When loaves grew smaller and prices continued to rise, anxiety spread more quickly than any rumor. Simply by observing the marketplace, one could often tell whether the harvest had been generous or poor, whether the coming months promised stability or hardship. What is especially thought-provoking is that, after hundreds of years, human nature has changed very little. We still seek comfort in knowing that tomorrow we will have enough food. We still become uneasy when life's necessities grow scarce. These ancient needs, as Carl Jung might have described them, belong to the deepest layers of the collective unconscious, the place where all people, regardless of culture or century, share the same fears and the same hopes. As evening slowly settles across the marketplace, the last loaves of bread are sold. The baker quietly packs away his store. The remaining sacks of grain are carefully stored inside the warehouse. Herds of livestock are led away from the square, leaving fresh hoofprints upon the damp earth. Gradually, silence returns. Yet the lesson left behind by the marketplace continues to linger. The prosperity of a civilization is not measured by the amount of gold stored in its treasury, but by whether ordinary people can still afford a loaf of bread with the quiet confidence that tomorrow they will continue to live, continue to work, and continue to hope. And perhaps this is one of history's most enduring truths. A truly civilized society is not the wealthiest one. It is the society that safeguards fairness, beginning with the smallest of things, with a single grain of wheat, a warm loaf fresh from the oven, and the quiet promise that no one will be left behind in humanity's shared struggle to make a living. The market court and the foundations of medieval justice. If the medieval marketplace was the beating heart of the economy, then the pie powder court may be seen as the quiet pulse that kept that heart from falling into disorder. As the morning mist still lingered above timber-framed rooftops, merchants began setting up their stalls, carefully unrolling bales of wool, shimmering silks from the east, fragrant sacks of spices, and finely crafted handmade goods. Yet beneath all this bustling activity lay an unspoken question. What would happen if a promise were broken? if merchandise failed to match its description, or if a debt was never repaid. A marketplace could exist because of its goods, but it could flourish only as long as people trusted one another. It was from this very need that the Pie-Powder Court emerged as one of the most remarkable institutions of medieval commercial justice. The name pie powder comes from the old French phrase pied poudre, meaning dusty feet. It is both a beautiful and deeply fitting image of the merchants who had traveled hundreds of miles along unpaved roads, their shoes coated with dust after weeks of relentless journeying. They were neither nobles nor knights. They were simply ordinary people carrying the hope of building better lives through honest trade. Because they were constantly on the move, they could not afford to wait months or even years for disputes to be resolved in the ordinary courts. Remaining too long in one place meant missing the next fair, losing business opportunities, or even risking their entire livelihood. For that reason, the Pie-Powder Court was designed to match the rhythm of commerce itself: swift, practical, and efficient. At many of the great fairs of England and continental Europe, disputes arising in the morning could often be heard and decided before the day had ended. Witnesses were summoned immediately. Evidence was examined on the spot. Judgments were frequently delivered before sunset. To us today, such speed may seem extraordinary. Yet in the medieval world, swift justice was essential to the survival of trade. A merchant could not wait until the following spring simply to recover payment for a roll of cloth. Justice that arrived too late resembled a ship that had already sailed, technically correct, perhaps, but no longer of any real value. What is especially remarkable is that the Pie-Powder Court did not exist solely for local townspeople. Merchants arriving from Flanders, Italy, Germany, and many other distant lands were equally entitled to seek justice there. In an age long before the modern concept of international law, this represented a truly remarkable step forward. The law was beginning to extend beyond the boundaries of bloodline and territory in order to protect something even greater: trust in commerce itself. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." These words take on a special meaning in times of conflict. When disputes arise, it is remarkably easy to see another person's faults while overlooking our own. A merchant may believe that the customer is unreasonable. The customer may feel deceived, yet if both see only the failures of the other, the conflict can never truly end. In one sense, the Pie-Powder Court did far more than determine who was right and who was wrong. It invited people to confront their own responsibility, and this echoes one of Jung's deepest insights. True maturity begins when we have the courage to examine our own shadow instead of searching for it only in others. One of the principal reasons why the champagne fairs and the great English markets flourished was that merchants genuinely felt protected. They knew that if they were cheated, they did not have to seek revenge through violence or personal retaliation. They could turn instead to the law. This significantly reduced the bloody conflicts that were all too common during an age when power was often measured by physical strength. That protection extended beyond the marketplace itself. Along many important trade routes, kings and local lords organized armed escorts to help ensure that merchant caravans could reach the fairs safely. At first glance, this may seem like a privilege granted to traders. In reality, however, it was an investment. If merchants stopped coming, the markets would become empty. If the markets declined, tax revenues would diminish. And if those revenues disappeared, the strength of local government would weaken as well. Protecting merchants therefore meant protecting the prosperity of an entire region. It is fascinating to realize that medieval commercial law was not born within quiet libraries or scholarly chambers. It grew amid the sounds of bargaining, the rhythm of horses' hooves, and the comforting aroma of freshly baked bread. The law did not emerge first as an abstract theory. It evolved from ordinary human problems. A bale of wool delivered short of its promised weight, a horse found to be less healthy than claimed, a debt left unpaid, or an oral agreement later denied. Thousands of such everyday disputes quietly laid the foundations of European commercial law. Jung once observed, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Every transaction in the marketplace reflected this truth. A merchant from the cold northern lands arrived with wool. A trader from Venice brought silk and fine glass. A humble farmer hoped to exchange a few baskets of eggs for a little salt. After every exchange, ownership of goods changed hands, but so did people themselves. They learned to trust, to negotiate, to cooperate, and sometimes even to forgive. From Carl Jung's perspective, this also reflects one of the deepest needs within the collective unconscious. Human beings are not meant to live in complete isolation. We need connection, we need exchange, and we need a system of justice capable of sustaining those connections. Without law, fear gradually replaces trust. Without trust, commerce ceases to flourish. And when commerce falters, the bridges connecting different cultures slowly begin to disappear. Perhaps this is why the Pie Powder Court, though merely a modest court situated within a crowded marketplace, carried a significance far greater than its judicial function alone. It quietly assured every merchant that the long road ahead did not have to be traveled alone. It reminded every buyer that honesty was still protected. And it offered the entire community a simple yet powerful message. Justice does not belong only within magnificent palaces. It also belongs upon dusty roads, where ordinary people strive to earn an honest living through the work of their own hands. As evening gradually settles over the marketplace, the stalls are carefully dismantled, and the cheerful conversations slowly fade into silence. Perhaps the judge of the Pie Powder Court has already risen from his simple wooden chair and gone home for the night. Yet what remains is not the memory of verdicts or legal rulings. What endures is the quiet peace of knowing that tomorrow, when the marketplace opens once again, people will still be able to offer one another a promise, a handshake, and their trust. And perhaps that is the most enduring form of justice history has ever quietly created, a justice written not only in laws and judgments, but also engraved within the hearts of people who believe that fairness is what makes every human encounter truly worthwhile. Security, the foundation of prosperity. While the morning mist still hangs softly over the dirt roads leading toward the town, caravans of merchants quietly make their way to the marketplace. Heavy wooden wagons laden with wool, sacks of salt, barrels of ale, bolts of cloth, and precious bags of spices sway gently with the rhythm of horses' hooves. Yet what inspires these merchants to continue their journey is not merely the hope of selling their goods. More important than anything else is the confidence that they will arrive safely. In the medieval world, wealth never truly began with coins. It began with the simple feeling that one could travel a road without constantly looking over one's shoulder. If the marketplace was the heart of the medieval economy, then security was the lifeblood that quietly sustained that heart throughout the centuries. Today, we often associate prosperity with technology, investment capital, or natural resources. But in medieval Europe, the deciding factor was far simpler. A road, safe enough that merchants were willing to travel it. A single caravan lost to bandits could erase the savings of an entire family. A bridge controlled by robbers could sever the commercial lifeline of an entire region. It is no coincidence that the towns which prospered most rapidly were often located along routes protected by kings or local lords. Only when people no longer lived in constant fear could they begin to think calmly about investing in the future. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other." These words are often understood within the context of human psychology, yet they also illuminate a broader truth about society. Power acquires its deepest meaning only when it is used to protect rather than to threaten. A lord who maintained guards did so not merely to display his authority, but to create a place where people could trade, cooperate, and flourish. When power became an instrument of protection instead of oppression, it opened the door for trust to grow. At the town gate, the guards did far more than stand watch with spears and shields. They embodied the government's promise that the marketplace existed under the protection of the law. They inspected those entering and leaving the town, observed suspicious individuals, maintained public order, and at times escorted merchant caravans through particularly dangerous stretches of road. For a wool merchant arriving from Flanders or an Italian trader carrying costly bolts of silk, the sight of these guards was perhaps worth even more than the massive stone walls surrounding the town. Walls could protect a city, but only people could protect trust. One of the most fascinating aspects of medieval security is that it was maintained not only through swords and armor, but also through information. The marketplace served as the place where royal proclamations were announced before the assembled public. Whenever a new decree was issued, taxes were changed, war threatened, or an important trade route reopened after months of closure, the news was proclaimed aloud in the market square. In a world without newspapers, radio, or the internet, the marketplace functioned as the communication center of an entire region. A farmer arriving to sell a few baskets of eggs might return home carrying news that proved far more valuable than the coins he earned that day. These official announcements were delivered in a formal voice before large gatherings of townspeople. Their purpose was not simply to communicate information, but also to create the shared understanding that the law belonged to everyone. When hundreds of people heard the same proclamation together, it became difficult for anyone later to claim ignorance. In this way, the law was written not only upon parchment, but also upon the collective memory of the community. From Carl Jung's perspective, this reflects one of humanity's deepest psychological needs, the longing for order. Jung once observed, "In all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Human beings are capable of enduring hardship, yet prolonged chaos is far more difficult to bear. We naturally search for patterns that make the world feel understandable and predictable. This is one of the reasons why law brings such profound reassurance. When people understand what is permitted and what is forbidden, the future becomes a little less frightening. Taxes formed another part of that shared order. Although they were not always welcomed with enthusiasm, every merchant caravan entering through the town gate paid certain duties. Traders renting stalls within the marketplace also paid fees. For many, these obligations felt burdensome. Yet viewed from another perspective, these revenues helped maintain the town guards, repair bridges and roads, protect commercial routes, and ensure that market days remained safe for everyone. When used wisely, taxes became the price paid for stability itself. Of course, laws lose much of their strength if they cannot be enforced. Those caught cheating with false weights, stealing, or disturbing the peace were often judged publicly in the marketplace. They might be fined, have their goods confiscated, be placed in the stocks, or endure public humiliation before the assembled crowd. For medieval people, the loss of honor could be even more painful than the loss of wealth. Public punishment therefore served not only to discipline the offender, but also to send a powerful message throughout the community. Honesty is the foundation of prosperity. What is especially worth reflecting upon is that genuine security does not arise simply from the fear of punishment. It grows from the confidence that most people willingly choose to uphold the same system of rules. A merchant who carries his entire fortune across hundreds of miles does not travel because he believes robbers no longer exist. He travels because he believes that enough people remain committed to protecting justice to make the journey worthwhile. Perhaps this is the quiet lesson that medieval marketplaces continue to offer us nearly 1,000 years later. Prosperity has never been created by gold alone, by merchandise, or even by crowded markets. It is built upon things that cannot easily be seen: a safe road, a devoted guard, a just law, a transparent public proclamation, and a community united by trust in a shared order. Carl Jung often reminded us that the outer world reflects the condition of the inner one. When our inner lives are guided by integrity, society itself has a greater chance of becoming stable and enduring. And perhaps, just like those merchants who quietly set out toward the marketplace beneath the first light of dawn, each of us is traveling our own road, carrying one simple hope: that at the end of the journey, there will still be a safe place where we can lay down our burdens, offer our trust, and find peace in return. The marketplace, the internet of the Middle Ages. Today, with nothing more than a gentle tap on a screen, we can discover what is happening in a city thousands of miles away. Yet nearly 1,000 years ago, the medieval marketplace served as the world's own version of an internet. There were no newspapers, no telegraphs, and certainly no social media. Instead, the roads leading toward every market carried an uninterrupted flow of information. Every merchant, every pilgrim, every farmer, and every wandering monk became, often without realizing it, a messenger carrying stories from the places they had just left behind. That is why people entered a medieval marketplace, not only to buy bread, wool, or spices. They came to listen to the world. A market morning often began with the ringing of church bells echoing across rooftops still veiled in mist. Those bells did more than announce the beginning of another trading day. They invited the entire community to gather. Before long, the market square filled with the rhythm of horses' hooves, the creaking of wooden wheels upon stone streets, and the warm greetings exchanged between familiar faces. Within this lively atmosphere, goods and information blended together so naturally that it became almost impossible to say which held greater value. A farmer who arrived carrying a few baskets of eggs might return home with news that the king had issued a new royal decree. A merchant from Venice could tell stories of ships freshly arrived from the east, their holds filled with fragrant spices. A traveler might quietly speak of disease spreading through distant lands, while a pilgrim recounted the miracle he believed he had witnessed at a sacred shrine. Some of these stories were true, others were little more than rumor, yet all of them expanded the horizons of people who rarely ventured beyond the boundaries of their own village. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." A small piece of news, a story shared by word of mouth, or a quiet conversation beside the baker's stall could possess greater power than the richest material treasure. For what human beings seek is not merely information, we seek meaning. We long to understand what is happening beyond our own lives, so that we may better understand our place within a much larger world. That desire existed long before the invention of the internet. One fascinating truth about the medieval world is that news almost never traveled alone. It journeyed hand in hand with rumor. Every time a story was retold, a few details might be added, others quietly forgotten, until it gradually transformed into something entirely new. People whispered about wars that were said to be approaching, saints who had performed miraculous deeds, mysterious wealthy merchants, or newly discovered roads leading toward the east. Sometimes these rumors stirred fear. At other times, they reflected the shared hopes, anxieties, and imagination of an entire community. From Carl Jung's perspective, this is hardly surprising. Jung believed that human beings live not only through objective facts, but also through symbols and stories shared within the collective unconscious. He once wrote, "The dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul. Dreams reveal the hidden landscape of the individual soul, while the stories circulating through the marketplace revealed the shared dream of an entire society. Through rumors and legends, medieval people expressed their fears of war, their longing for miracles, their faith in salvation, and their desire to connect with lands they had never seen. It is impossible to speak about the flow of information during the Middle Ages without recognizing the central role of the Church. For many communities, the Church served not only as a place of worship, but also as the center of social life. After religious services, parishioners often lingered to talk, exchange news, and prepare for the market that gathered nearby. In this way, the church and the marketplace were never the opposites that many people today might imagine. They existed side by side, complementing one another with remarkable harmony. One nourished the spiritual life of the community, the other sustained its material life. This relationship became even more evident during the great religious fairs. On important feast days of the church, thousands of people traveled from surrounding regions to attend sacred ceremonies. Wherever large crowds gathered, commerce quickly followed. Stalls selling bread, candles, religious icons, cloth, spices, and countless everyday necessities lined the streets surrounding the church grounds. People came to pray, yet they also took the opportunity to trade, reunite with friends, and learn the latest news arriving from distant places. For medieval people, faith and commerce were never separate worlds. A person could kneel before the altar in prayer and moments later negotiate the price of a bolt of cloth without sensing any contradiction. They understood that life required both bread to nourish the body and faith to nourish the soul. In a society where every aspect of daily life was closely intertwined with religion, honest trade carried deep moral significance. Integrity in business was not merely a responsibility toward one's customers, it was also a responsibility before God. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." By looking outward, people discovered news, stories, and goods arriving from distant lands. Yet by looking inward, they came to understand that what gave all of those encounters their deepest meaning was not the quantity of merchandise exchanged, but the enduring human need for connection. It was this ancient longing that first led people away from isolation, inspiring them to build villages, cities, and ultimately, entire civilizations. Perhaps this is why the medieval marketplace was never simply a place of commerce. It was where new ideas were born, where different cultures met, where faith quietly spread, and where information crossed every boundary of distance. A merchant carrying spices from the east also carried stories of unfamiliar lands. A pilgrim returning home brought not only the badge of a sacred shrine, but also a transformed understanding of the world. Every brief conversation became another delicate thread woven into the vast tapestry of humanity's shared memory. And as evening slowly descended upon the market square, the stalls were gradually packed away. The church bell rang for the final time that day, and people quietly began their journey home. Yet the stories continued traveling long after the marketplace had fallen silent. They followed dusty roads beside merchants, rattled along in farmers' wagons, and settled gently into the memories of children who had heard something extraordinary in a quiet corner of the market. Perhaps this is the greatest wonder of the medieval marketplace. It exchanged not only goods, but also memories, hopes, beliefs, and dreams. And in its own quiet way, it became Europe's very first network of connection. An internet built not from cables or wireless signals, but from sincere encounters between one human being and another. the streets that lived through commerce. If the marketplace was the heart of a medieval city, then its commercial streets were the quiet arteries that carried life into every corner of the urban landscape. Each dawn, as the first rays of sunlight gently settled upon timber-framed rooftops, and the cobblestones still glistened with morning dew, streets such as Cheapside and Eastcheap in London slowly awakened. They did not awaken to the sound of alarm clocks or traffic, as modern cities do, but to the creaking of shop doors opening, the rhythmic echo of horses' hooves upon stone, the welcoming voices of merchants, and the comforting aroma of freshly baked bread, mingling with herbs, leather, and damp timber. These streets were never merely places through which people passed. They were living beings in their own right, where every stone preserved the footsteps of thousands of lives that had crossed paths there. Among them, Cheapside stood as one of medieval London's most celebrated thoroughfares. Its name comes from the Old English word cheap, meaning market or place of trade. It was no accident that this street remained the commercial heart of the city for centuries. Here, goods from across Europe converged. Wool from northern England, silks from Italy, spices from the East, and countless finely crafted handmade products. Yet what truly gave Cheapside its spirit was not simply the abundance of merchandise, but the rhythm of human life itself. Every negotiation, every greeting, every quiet nod of recognition became another note in the endless symphony of a city growing stronger with each passing day. Not far away lay Eastcheap, a district renowned for its food stalls, taverns, and shops, serving both hard-working townspeople and weary travelers. If Cheapside reflected international commerce and prosperity, Eastcheap felt like the city's communal kitchen. The aromas of roasted meat, warm bread, freshly brewed ale, and simple home-cooked meals drifted through the streets, wrapping every passerby in the comforting warmth of ordinary life. These streets remind us that a city is built not only from stone and brick, but also from the scents, memories, and emotions left behind by countless people earning their daily living. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Perhaps commercial streets resemble the human soul itself. If we observe only their surface, we see market stalls, coins, and transactions. But if we listen more deeply, we discover something beneath them all. A longing to connect, to be recognized, and to belong to a community. A merchant's call echoing through the marketplace was never merely an advertisement. It was the voice of one human being hoping that another would acknowledge his presence in the vastness of the world. The street cry became one of the defining sounds of medieval commercial life. Without illuminated signs or colorful advertisements, merchants relied upon the strength and character of their own voices to attract customers. Every trade developed its own familiar rhythm. Bakers greeted the morning with warm, welcoming calls. Fishmongers raised their voices loudly as baskets of fresh fish arrived from the river docks. Cloth merchants gently invited customers to feel the softness of finely woven wool with their own hands. Together, these voices rose and fell like endless waves, creating a melody unlike any other, the unmistakable music of the medieval city. Yet cities are remembered not only through sound, they also live within memory through scent. If you were to close your eyes and step into Cheapside 800 years ago, you might find yourself surrounded by countless layers of fragrance. Freshly baked bread blended with the sweetness of ripe apples, the exotic perfumes of eastern spices, the scent of pine timber, well-worked leather, fermenting ale, and the smoky breath of blacksmiths' forges glowing with fire. Interwoven among them were less pleasant odors, livestock, wet earth, refuse, and mud, all equally authentic parts of medieval life. Every scent told its own story. Together, they remind us that history is experienced not only through our eyes, but through every one of our senses. From Carl Jung's perspective, human memory is often anchored more deeply in sensory symbols than in dry facts alone. A familiar fragrance can awaken an entire landscape of memories that has rested silently for years. Perhaps this is why commercial streets became part of the collective unconscious. Places where countless generations shared remarkably similar experiences. The ringing of church bells, the morning cries of merchants, the aroma of warm bread, and the steady rumble of wooden cartwheels crossing cobblestones. Yet lively activity alone was never enough to sustain these streets. They also required order. Medieval authorities understood this well. Market stalls were carefully arranged according to profession, making it easier for customers to find what they needed while allowing officials to inspect goods more efficiently. Fish sellers were separated from bakers. Butchers worked within designated areas to reduce contamination. These regulations may seem simple today, yet they quietly shaped the foundations of the organized cities we know now. Alongside order came cleanliness. At the end of every market day, refuse, straw, vegetable scraps, animal bones, and dirty water were cleared away before the city welcomed another morning. Although medieval people did not yet understand bacteria through scientific knowledge, they recognized through experience that cleaner streets attracted more visitors, reduced illness, and inspired greater confidence among both merchants and residents. A city that cared for the smallest details was often a city capable of lasting prosperity. Carl Jung once observed, "In all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." His words seem to describe the spirit of medieval commercial streets with remarkable precision. At first glance, they appeared wonderfully chaotic, overflowing with voices, animals, negotiations, and countless activities unfolding simultaneously. Yet beneath that vibrant energy existed an invisible order. Every person understood where they belonged. Every street fulfilled its own purpose. Every sound became part of the city's shared rhythm. Perhaps what has allowed streets like Cheapside and Eastcheap to endure so vividly in history is not simply their wealth, but the profound truth they reveal about human nature. We have always created places where people can meet. At first they were little more than narrow roads. Then they became marketplaces, commercial streets, cities, and eventually entire civilizations. Every civilization begins with ordinary human encounters. As night gradually settles over the ancient rooftops, the merchants' voices fall silent. Wooden doors close one by one, and the streets slowly return to peaceful stillness. Only the gentle wind continues to drift across the cobblestones that have witnessed countless generations come and go. Yet if you listen carefully enough, you may still imagine the footsteps of merchants, the laughter of children, and the familiar sounds of a city that never truly sleeps. For within the memory of history, and within the depths of the human soul that Carl Jung so carefully explored, places that once held countless human encounters continue to live long after those who walked their streets have themselves become part of time. How was food kept trustworthy? Amid the bustling marketplaces of the Middle Ages, where merchants' calls blended with the rhythm of horses' hooves and the distant ringing of church bells, there was something people quietly sought even before they looked for a fair price. Trust. A loaf of bread, a fresh fish, a wheel of cheese, or a basket of eggs was more than simple nourishment. Each represented a promise between seller and buyer. In a world without labels, expiration dates, or modern food inspection agencies, what gave a mother the confidence to bring food home for her family? What persuaded a merchant to return to the very same stall the following week? The answer was never found in colorful signs or clever advertisements. It rested upon an invisible value that sustained medieval marketplaces for centuries. Trust itself. Each morning, the fishmongers were usually among the very first to arrive. Before the sun had fully risen above the horizon, they were already waiting at the river docks or the town gates, receiving baskets of fish freshly caught or transported from distant coastal villages. They understood that time was their greatest enemy. There was no ice, no refrigeration, and certainly no refrigerated transport. Even a delay of only a few hours could transform valuable merchandise into something worthless. For that reason, selling fish required far more than physical endurance. It demanded honesty. A single fish that was no longer fresh might earn a few extra coins today, but it could destroy a reputation built over many years. The butchers lived under similar pressures. They needed not only to slaughter animals skillfully, but also to keep the meat clean, prevent contamination, and sell it before spoilage began. Local authorities often designated separate areas specifically for meat sellers in order to reduce unpleasant odors, manage waste, and minimize the spread of disease. Although medieval people possessed no scientific understanding of microorganisms, they recognized through experience that cleanliness formed the foundation of public health. A clean marketplace was not merely more pleasant, it was more trustworthy. One particularly fascinating feature of many medieval English towns was an official whose title sounds rather unusual today: the ale taster. His duty was not to enjoy fine ale, but to inspect its quality, strength, fair pricing, and the honesty of those who brewed it. If a batch had been diluted or failed to meet accepted standards, the brewer could face immediate penalties. This reveals that medieval communities clearly understood something profoundly important. Trust cannot survive without fair oversight. The quality of food and drink could never be left to chance. It had to be protected as a shared treasure belonging to the entire community. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Few statements capture the spirit of the medieval marketplace more perfectly. A merchant could proclaim that his goods were the freshest, the finest, or the cleanest available. Yet in the end, only what the customer actually received truly mattered. Reputation was never built upon promises alone. It was built through actions, faithfully repeated every single day. After hundreds of honest sales, a vegetable seller gradually earned the confidence of an entire neighborhood. After baking thousands of loaves that consistently weighed exactly what they should, a baker came to be respected throughout the community, alongside fish and meat. Even the simplest products, vegetables, eggs, cheese, and other farm goods carried within them their own quiet story of trust. Farmers brought vegetables from gardens surrounding the town, while the leaves still glistened with morning dew. Eggs were carefully nestled into straw-filled baskets to protect them from cracking along rough country roads. Wheels of cheese were aged for weeks, sometimes even months, before they developed the rich flavor worthy of being offered for sale. Every product embodied time, patience, and the labor of many devoted hands. In a society where most food was produced on a small scale, buyers often knew exactly who the sellers were, where they lived, and even something about their families. This created a remarkable form of oversight, one built upon honor. A dishonest egg seller risked losing far more than customers. He risked losing his place within the very community where he lived. Carl Jung once observed, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For medieval merchants, becoming one's true self also meant building a character trustworthy enough that others would willingly place the health of their own families in one's hands. Perhaps this explains why medieval marketplaces devoted far more attention to food inspection than we often imagine today. Local officials verified weights and measures. Ale tasters inspected beverages. Market overseers examined the quality of meat and fish. Penalties for fraud could be severe because people understood that if only a few merchants abandoned honesty, the entire marketplace would lose its most precious possession: trust. Viewed through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology, food also carries a deeper symbolic meaning. It nourishes not only the body, but also reflects the relationship between humanity and nature, and between one human being and another. When a mother purchased vegetables from a familiar farmer, she was doing far more than completing an economic transaction. She was participating in an act of trust. The farmer offered the fruits of his labor. The customer offered her confidence and her coins. Together, they sustained the invisible thread that quietly held the entire community together. Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. If we broaden this reflection, we may recognize that suspicion in commerce often mirrors the fears we carry within ourselves. We fear deception because life's fragility makes every meal precious. And for that very reason, when we finally discover a merchant we can truly trust, we are not simply buying food, we are purchasing peace of mind." Perhaps the greatest legacy of the medieval marketplace was not its methods of food inspection, but the quiet lesson it offers about civilization itself. A society truly flourishes only when people can trust one another in the smallest details of daily life. An unbroken egg, a bundle of fresh vegetables, a carefully aged wheel of cheese, or a properly brewed cup of ale, each stands as quiet evidence that honesty can be woven into the ordinary acts of everyday living. And as the afternoon gradually fades into evening, the baskets of vegetables grow lighter. Every wheel of cheese finds its new owner, and the fishmongers wipe down their wooden tables, still carrying the faint scent of the river. The marketplace slowly settles into silence, yet lingering within that peaceful stillness remains something deeply beautiful. The comforting feeling that, even in the uncertain world of the Middle Ages, people never stopped trying to create a place where every meal began with sincerity. Every exchange was protected by honor, and every new day was sustained by trust. Perhaps that, more than anything else, has always been the strongest foundation of every civilization, from the distant past all the way to the present day. A good reputation was worth more than gold. When we think about wealth in the Middle Ages, the first images that often come to mind are silver coins, chests filled with gold, or wagons laden with valuable merchandise. Yet for the people who lived among the bustling marketplaces of medieval Europe, there was one possession more precious than all of these combined: a good reputation. A person might lose a purse of coins and earn it back through hard work. A shipment could be swept away by a storm and replaced during the next trading season. But once honor had been lost, regaining the trust of the community was far more difficult than recovering any material fortune. For this reason, many medieval marketplaces were sustained not only by laws or money, but by something invisible and far more enduring: the reputation of every individual. Within that world, the guilds played an especially important role. They were far more than organizations protecting the interests of craftsmen. They served as guardians of the honor of an entire profession. Whether it was the guild of blacksmiths, shoemakers, or weavers, each maintained strict standards concerning the quality of workmanship, professional ethics, and the treatment of customers. They understood that a single dishonest craftsman could damage the reputation of everyone else. A poorly made pair of shoes harmed not only the shoemaker who produced them, it cast suspicion upon every shoemaker in that district. A bolt of poorly woven cloth could weaken confidence in an entire city renowned for its weaving. In an economy built upon personal relationships and word of mouth, reputation belonged not merely to individuals, but to the community as a whole. To become a master craftsman, a young apprentice often spent many years in training. This period was not devoted solely to learning how to swing a hammer, weave cloth, or tan leather. More importantly, it was a time for learning how to become a trustworthy person. Day after day, the apprentice observed his master speaking with customers, refusing inferior materials, and choosing to remake an imperfect product rather than sell it simply to earn a few extra coins. These lessons were never written in books. They were passed from one pair of hands to another, and from the character of the master into the heart of the apprentice. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown." Honor may be understood in much the same way. There is no simple formula for becoming someone worthy of trust. It is the result of countless small choices repeated faithfully every day. An apprentice did not become a master simply because time passed. He matured when he learned to place professional conscience above immediate profit. This explains why reputation became the most valuable currency in medieval marketplaces. A merchant known for honesty never needed to shout the loudest to attract customers. People sought him out on their own. A trader renowned for keeping his word could purchase goods on credit because everyone trusted that payment would arrive as promised. A skilled craftsman might receive commissions from towns hundreds of miles away simply through the recommendations of satisfied customers. In many ways, reputation became history's earliest form of credit. The opposite was equally true. Fraud was not merely a violation of the law, it was an act of destroying one's own future. A baker who deliberately made loaves lighter than the legal weight. A cloth merchant who concealed flaws in his fabric. Or a brewer who watered down his ale might earn a little extra profit for a single day. But once the truth came to light, the price was immeasurably greater. In close-knit communities, where everyone knew one another, bad news spread as quickly as any merchandise. A rumor of dishonesty could travel through the marketplace before sunset, and once trust had been broken, no amount of money earned through deception could restore a ruined reputation. Carl Gustav Jung once observed, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Human beings are defined not by beautiful promises, but by the quiet actions they repeat day after day. Nowhere was this truer than among the merchants of the Middle Ages. A clever advertisement might attract customers once, but only honesty could persuade them to return. One fascinating aspect of medieval commerce that history often overlooks is the remarkable role of women. When people imagine medieval marketplaces, they often picture men pushing heavy carts or bargaining loudly with customers. Yet in reality, women were present everywhere. They sold vegetables, cheese, eggs, ale, bread, cloth, and countless other everyday necessities. Many families depended upon the skill, diligence, and perseverance of the women standing behind these modest market stalls. They brought far more than food to the marketplace. They brought patience, dedication, and the ability to nurture lasting relationships with customers over many years. Perhaps most remarkable of all were the widows who assumed responsibility for family businesses after the death of their husbands. In a society where much authority rested with men, widows were often permitted to continue operating the family workshop or shop. This privilege arose not simply from compassion, but because they had already earned years of experience and trust while working beside their husbands. Customers knew them. Suppliers relied upon them. Apprentices remained out of genuine respect. The shop did not close simply because its master had died. For what was inherited was not merely a wooden workbench or a collection of tools, it was the reputation of an entire family. Viewed through Carl Jung's perspective, this becomes a beautiful example of humanity's capacity to rise above hardship through inner growth. Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." A woman who lost her husband could become a victim of circumstance. Yet she could also choose to become the guardian of the legacy that her family had built through a lifetime of honest work. That choice preserved not only the family business, but also the trust of the entire community. Perhaps what made medieval marketplaces so extraordinary was never the rarity of the goods they sold. Rather, They taught people that life's greatest treasures cannot be weighed upon scales or counted in silver coins. A golden ring may be stolen, a chest of silver may disappear, but a reputation built through honesty, dedication, and years of faithfully keeping one's word continues to live even after its owner is gone. As evening gradually settles over the marketplace, wooden shutters close and the stalls grow quiet. What remains is not the amount of money earned that day. What endures is the memory of how a merchant treated his customers, of promises faithfully kept, and of the quiet reassurance that next week, people will return to that very same stall once again. Perhaps this is the most beautiful lesson the medieval marketplace quietly offers us. Gold and silver may create the wealth of a single lifetime, but only a good reputation possesses the power to sustain generations. And within the depths of human psychology that Carl Jung so often explored, that reputation is not ultimately defined by what others think of us. Rather, it is the natural consequence of choosing, day after day, to live honestly as our truest selves, the goods that changed the world. There are certain goods throughout human history that seem so ordinary we rarely pause to consider their true significance. A tiny grain of salt, a coarse piece of woolen cloth, a simple clay pot, or an iron bar forged in the glow of a blazing fire, all appear remarkably humble through the eyes of the modern world. Yet if we turn back the wheel of time and step once more into the bustling marketplaces of the Middle Ages, we begin to see that these very objects quietly transformed the course of European civilization. They were exchanged not only for money, but also carried knowledge, craftsmanship, trust, and humanity's dreams. Through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, every object created by human hands reflects the inner world of its maker. We shape our possessions, yet in countless ways, our possessions quietly shape us in return. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Although these words are usually understood in the context of human relationships, their meaning can be extended even further. Everything a society chooses to create, to value, and to pursue across thousands of miles reveals something about the deepest longings of its collective soul. The goods people traded were never merely practical necessities, they were reflections of who they were becoming. Among all the commodities of the medieval world, perhaps none was more humble and more powerful than salt. Today, salt sits quietly upon nearly every dining table, so common that we scarcely think about it. But during the Middle Ages, salt was essential to survival itself. Without refrigeration, meat and fish could only be preserved through salting. Caravans carried salt from coastal regions and inland mines across vast distances to communities far from the sea. Entire trade routes emerged solely because of this precious mineral, the most famous becoming known as the salt roads. A single grain of salt preserved not only food but the functioning of entire economies. It enabled armies to store provisions through the winter, allowed cities to maintain food supplies, and made long sea voyages possible. Such a tiny substance quietly influenced the lives of millions. If salt preserved life, spices awakened the imagination. Black pepper, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and saffron did far more than flavor meals. They became symbols of wealth, prestige, and influence. At times, a sack of pepper could even serve as a form of payment, yet their deeper significance lies within the human spirit. Unlike salt, spices were not essential for survival, and still people crossed oceans to obtain them. This reveals something profound. Human beings do not live by biological necessity alone. We are also nourished by beauty, novelty, and the desire to feel connected to lands we have never seen. Carl Gustav Jung once observed, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Merchants searching for spices appeared to be journeying toward distant horizons, yet perhaps, at a deeper level, they were also following a call that arose from within themselves, the timeless longing to discover what lies beyond the familiar. The history of commerce, in this sense, is also the history of the human soul. Another commodity that profoundly shaped medieval Europe was wool. The broad pastures of England and Flanders nurtured not only sheep, but one of the continent's most flourishing textile industries. Wool became the foundation of many prosperous cities. Shepherds, shearers, spinners, dyers, and weavers all contributed to an immense chain of labor. Every piece of woolen cloth represented the combined efforts of countless individuals who would never meet one another. Perhaps this beautifully illustrates what Jung described as the collective unconscious. No civilization is built by one person alone. Every generation is quietly sustained by the labor of countless others. Alongside wool came cloth, a commodity so familiar that its deeper significance is often overlooked. Medieval clothing did far more than protect people from the cold. It revealed social status, occupation, and sometimes even the region from which its wearer came. A bolt of Eastern silk, a piece of white linen, or a thick woolen cloak, each told its own unique story. From the earliest times, clothing has served as one of humanity's ways of expressing identity. It reminds us that the longing to be seen, to belong, and to define ourselves has existed throughout every age. No account of medieval commerce would be complete without leather, a material woven into nearly every aspect of daily life. Shoes, horse bridles, travel bags, armor, sword sheaths, and book bindings all depended upon leather. Tanners therefore practiced one of the most essential crafts of the age, although their workshops were usually located outside city walls because of the overwhelming odors produced during the tanning process. This serves as a quiet reminder that behind every beautiful city stand countless unseen labors. Much like Jung's understanding of psychology, the most important parts of the soul are often hidden within places we would rather not examine. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Tanners rarely occupied the most visible places in the marketplace like wealthy merchants. Yet without their quiet work, society itself could scarcely function. Their example gently reminds us that true value does not always reside where attention naturally falls. Metal, too, formed one of the great foundations of medieval civilization. Iron became plowshares that opened new fields, nails that built ships, horseshoes that carried travelers farther than ever before. Locks, knives, farming tools, and weapons alike. Blacksmiths were among the most respected members of their communities because nearly every profession depended upon their skill. The rhythmic ringing of hammer against anvil echoed through towns like a steady heartbeat. Every blow shaped more than iron alone. It helped forge a society growing ever more complex and resilient. Alongside metal flourished pottery, a craft reflecting the beautiful harmony of earth, water, air, and fire. Pots, bowls, jars, and vessels allowed people to store water, grain, oil, and wine. They served everyday needs while quietly preserving cultural memory. Centuries later, archaeologists often discover that broken pieces of pottery reveal more about vanished communities than almost anything else. Pottery therefore became more than household equipment, it became memory itself, hardened by time. Every one of these goods came from the hands of craftsmen whose names rarely appear within the chronicles of kings, yet whose work found its way into nearly every home. They did far more than produce objects. They passed knowledge from one generation to the next. Apprentices learned from masters before becoming masters themselves, creating an unbroken current of craftsmanship flowing across centuries. Through that quiet patience, Europe gradually built its cities, its industries, and eventually an economy that reached across an entire continent. Perhaps the greatest beauty of the medieval marketplace lies not in the sheer number of goods exchanged, but in the realization that every object carried something of its maker's spirit. A piece of cloth was never merely woven thread. A clay vessel was never simply baked earth. A sword was never only forged metal. Each represented thousands of hours of labor, patience, dignity, and the deeply human desire to leave behind something useful for others. And as evening slowly descends upon the ancient marketplace, the blacksmith's hammer finally falls silent. The pottery kiln glows softly with its fading embers. Bolts of cloth are carefully stored away, and sacks of salt are covered for the night. In that peaceful stillness, we begin to understand that the things which changed the world were not always great inventions or legendary battles. Sometimes history was written by a single grain of salt, a roll of wool, a humble clay pot, or the weathered hands of an unknown craftsman. And perhaps, as Carl Jung gently suggested, the true measure of a civilization lies not only in what its people possess, but in the part of their souls they quietly weave into every small creation made with devotion and care. Entertainment between market days. Perhaps one of the most unforgettable features of medieval marketplaces was not the towering sacks of wool, the fragrant spice stalls, or the lively chorus of bargaining that echoed from dawn until dusk. What lingered longest in the memories of those who passed through these places were the sounds of joy. Amid the endless demands of earning a living, the careful negotiations of trade, and journeys stretching hundreds of miles, people still found space for laughter, music, and storytelling. Perhaps this is one of history's gentlest truths. Human beings do not live merely to survive. We also live to nourish the soul. The eyes of Carl Gustav Jung. This is no coincidence. He once wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct." Perhaps it was this very play instinct that enabled humanity to endure even the harshest chapters of history. Imagine yourself entering a great European fair during the 13th century. Before your eyes settle upon the market stalls, it is likely that your ears would be captivated first. Somewhere across the square, the gentle melody of a lute begins to drift through the air. Wooden flutes weave together with the steady rhythm of a small drum. Children's laughter mingles with the applause of delighted adults, as a juggler skillfully keeps yet another ball dancing through the air. These sounds blend effortlessly with horses' hooves, wooden wagon wheels, and the distant peal of church bells, creating a harmony uniquely belonging to the medieval world. The wandering musicians known as minstrels and troubadours carried an entire world within their modest satchels. They owned no land and kept no permanent shops. Their greatest treasures were their voices, their instruments, and the countless stories committed to memory. Traveling from village to village and from fair to fair, they brought news, legends, songs, and moral lessons wherever they went. At a time when most people could neither read nor write, these performers became Europe's living books. What makes these storytellers especially remarkable is that they did far more than communicate information, they carried emotion. Carl Gustav Jung once observed, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Yet paradoxically, stories about kings, knights, or dragons often helped listeners encounter the deepest parts of themselves. Audiences did not merely enjoy the tales, they recognized their own fears, courage, betrayals, and loyalties reflected in the characters before them. Jung called these enduring figures archetypes, universal patterns dwelling within humanity's collective unconscious. Perhaps this is why stories told at medieval fairs possessed such lasting power. A storyteller required no grand theatre, an open space in the marketplace, a few wooden logs for listeners to sit upon, and a voice gentle enough to awaken imagination were all that was needed. As he spoke of a knight setting out in search of the Holy Grail, every listener envisioned a different journey. Yet beneath those many images lay the same deeper voyage, the search for one's true self. This echoes one of Jung's central themes: the lifelong process of individuation, the gradual becoming of a complete and authentic human being. Beside the storytellers stood the jugglers, performers capable of leaving entire crowds breathless before bursting into joyful applause. Leather balls, wooden rings, and even blunt knives flew gracefully through the air with astonishing precision. To us today, such performances might seem like simple entertainment, but to medieval audiences, they symbolized something deeper: the mastery of chaos. In a world overshadowed by war, plague, and famine, witnessing someone keep multiple objects moving together in perfect harmony offered a comforting sense of order. For a few precious moments, people believed that even chaos itself could be guided with skill and patience. Music, too, held a cherished place within every marketplace. Simple instruments such as small harps, stringed lutes, wooden flutes, and hand drums did more than create a festive atmosphere. They allowed weary souls to forget their burdens, if only briefly. Jung once wrote, "Music expresses that which cannot be put into words, and that which cannot remain silent." Although these words are more commonly attributed to Victor Hugo, Jung's work repeatedly affirmed a similar truth: that there are depths within the human soul that reason alone can never fully express. Music reaches where language gently falls away. Perhaps this explains why farmers, exhausted after days of demanding labor, would still pause to listen to a single song. That melody earned them no additional bread. It placed no extra coins in their pockets. Yet it gave them something even more valuable: the quiet reassurance that beauty still existed within life. In Jungian psychology, this reflects the delicate balance between our instinct for survival and our spiritual nature. A soul that labors endlessly without ever being moved by beauty gradually becomes barren. For this reason, medieval fairs always meant far more than commerce alone. They resembled miniature festivals, celebrating the entire community. Children chased after performers. Elderly listeners shared stories they themselves had heard many years before. Travelers lingered far longer than planned, simply to hear the end of a beloved ballad. Merchants understood this well. They knew that music would keep visitors nearby. A crowd gathered around a juggler naturally created more opportunities for neighboring stalls to sell their goods. Entertainment and commerce, therefore, existed not as separate worlds, but as natural companions, quietly strengthening one another. Carl Gustav Jung once remarked, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." A performance lasting only a few minutes could never alter Europe's economic fortunes, yet it filled an ordinary market day with meaning. People remembered the fair not only because of what they had purchased, but because of what they had felt. Those memories gently drew them back the following week, the following season, and the following year. If we look more deeply still, we see that wandering performers connected regions just as merchants connected economies. They carried songs from the north to the south, legends from France to England, and stories from Italy to Germany. In doing so, they spread culture in much the same way merchants spread goods. If a sack of spices carried the fragrance of the East, then a song carried the spirit of a distant homeland. Through these humble travelers, Europe slowly developed a shared cultural memory, where tales of Arthur, Roland, and Tristan became beloved across countless communities. History rarely pauses to mention one particularly beautiful detail. As the sun began to set, the wandering musicians were often the last voices still singing. Long after merchants had begun closing their stalls, tying shut their bundles, and counting the day's earnings, somewhere in the fading light, a slow melody continued to accompany departing travelers on their journey home. Music became a gentle bridge between the day's lively excitement and the peaceful silence of evening. It allowed the day to end with grace. Perhaps this is also what Carl Jung wished to remind us through his lifelong exploration of the human soul. Human beings require more than bread to live. We also need symbols, stories, and art to understand why we live. Medieval marketplaces therefore exchanged far more than goods. They exchanged hope, imagination, and dreams. Within the music, the storytelling, and the laughter of the gathered crowds, people discovered something almost invisible, yet profoundly precious. The feeling of belonging to a community united by shared memories, shared symbols, and shared aspirations. And as night gently settled over the marketplace, the musicians slung their lutes across their shoulders, the jugglers packed away their worn leather balls, and the storytellers carefully rolled up their weathered parchments. Quietly, they continued down the road toward another town, carrying today's laughter with them to sow joy into tomorrow. Perhaps they never imagined that centuries later, history would remember not only the goods once traded within those markets, but also the humble souls who taught an entire civilization how to smile, even in the midst of life's greatest hardships. Money and the birth of banking. If the medieval marketplace was the beating heart of Europe's economy, then money was the lifeblood flowing quietly through every road, bridge, and caravan of travelers. Yet the deeper we journey into history, the more we discover that the growth of commerce depended on far more than the amount of gold and silver locked away in wooden chests. What truly transformed an entire civilization was something far less tangible. Trust. A coin has value only because people collectively believe in it. A bill of exchange is nothing more than a piece of paper, unless trust stands behind it. And a bank is merely an ordinary room if no one believes that today's promise will be honored tomorrow. Perhaps this is where economic history gently meets the psychology of Carl Gustav Jung. For beneath every complex financial system, it is still the human mind that quietly keeps the world in motion. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Faith, hope, love, and insight are the highest achievements of human effort. Among these, faith or trust may well be the foundation upon which all commerce rests. Without trust, there can be no credit. Without credit, there can be no banking. And without banking, the medieval marketplace would have remained little more than a place where local goods were exchanged within a single community. If you were to visit one of the great Champagne fairs during the 13th century, you would encounter not only merchants selling wool, spices, and eastern silks, but also rows of wooden tables where money changers carried out their work. Spread before them lay dozens of different coins from kingdoms across Europe: French deniers, English pennies, Florentine florins, and Venetian ducats. Each possessed its own weight, purity of silver or gold, and accepted value. A merchant arriving from Genoa could not simply spend his own currency in Flanders unless someone first determined its equivalent worth. Money changers therefore became remarkable figures within medieval commerce. They created no wealth through physical labor, yet they allowed wealth itself to circulate. Their trained eyes distinguished genuine coins from counterfeit ones. Their finely balanced scales measured precious metals with precision. Their memories retained the constantly shifting exchange rates among dozens of currencies. What they truly sold was something far more valuable than gold itself: confidence. Their work brings to mind another of Jung's observations. Thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge. A money changer could never rely upon appearances alone. When assessing a coin's value, careful observation, patient analysis, and thoughtful judgment were essential. In much the same way, Jung repeatedly reminded us that genuine maturity requires looking beyond surface appearances. True value often lies deeper than the eye can immediately perceive. Yet the story of medieval commerce did not end with currency exchange alone. As trade routes stretched farther across Europe, carrying hundreds of gold coins became increasingly dangerous. Bandits, wars, storms, or simple accidents could erase a lifetime of savings overnight. Out of these very dangers emerged one of history's quietest yet most revolutionary inventions: the bill of exchange. At first glance, a bill of exchange appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary sheet of paper. Yet its true worth extended far beyond the parchment itself. A merchant could deposit funds in Florence and later receive their equivalent value upon arriving in Bruges, without transporting a heavy pouch of gold across hazardous roads. What now traveled was no longer precious metal, but a written promise. It marked the moment when humanity began to understand that trust could weigh less than gold while proving infinitely more valuable. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Viewed only from the outside, a bill of exchange was merely paper and ink. Yet looked at more deeply, it symbolized an important step in the evolution of human consciousness. People gradually learned to trust systems rather than physical objects alone. This represented not only an economic advance, but also a profound transformation in the way people thought about the world. Within this changing landscape, the great Italian banks assumed a central role. Cities such as Florence, Venice, and Genoa became renowned not only for art and maritime trade, but also for influential banking families like the Medici. These institutions did far more than safeguard money. They managed payments across Europe, maintained detailed ledgers, extended credit, and connected merchants who might never meet face to face. What is truly astonishing is that these earliest banks built their strength not upon stone walls or iron vaults, but upon reputation. A bank that lost its credibility could scarcely survive. This closely resembles Jung's concept of the persona, the social identity each individual presents to the world. Yet Jung also reminded us that a persona has lasting value only when it genuinely reflects the truth within. Banks were no different. Reputation could never endure if built upon deception. Alongside banking came the gradual expansion of credit. Today, borrowing money to invest or build a business seems perfectly ordinary. During the Middle Ages, however, credit represented a bold and transformative idea. It allowed a merchant to purchase goods today and settle payment at the next great fair. In doing so, the future itself acquired value in the present. People no longer traded only what they physically possessed. They also exchanged confidence in what tomorrow would bring. From a psychological perspective, this reveals something deeply human. We live not only through memories of the past, but also through our expectations of the future. Jung repeatedly emphasized that our lives are shaped not solely by what has already happened, but also by the images of tomorrow that quietly guide our decisions. Credit became the economic expression of that truth, the belief that tomorrow would be strong enough to fulfill the promises made today. Out of credit emerged yet another important idea: risk management. Ships could sink beneath stormy seas. Merchant caravans might fall prey to robbers crossing mountain passes. Epidemics could close entire cities without warning. If every loss rested upon a single individual, commerce could never flourish. Merchants therefore began forming partnerships, pooling investments, and sharing both profits and losses. These practices became the earliest foundations of insurance. Individuals contributed modest sums so that, should disaster strike, the burden would be shared among many rather than crushing one person alone. This was not merely a financial innovation, it represented a remarkable step forward in collective consciousness. People gradually came to understand that cooperation possesses greater strength than isolation. Carl Gustav Jung once observed, "The healthy man does not torture others generally, it is the tortured who turn into torturers." A society that learns to share risk also reduces fear. When people no longer live under the constant threat of losing everything through a single misfortune, they become more willing to explore, to create, and to invest in the future. That sense of psychological security became one of the quiet foundations upon which medieval commerce continued to flourish for centuries. Perhaps what I find most moving when reflecting upon the history of medieval banking is the realization that our modern financial world began with nothing more than modest wooden tables standing within ancient marketplaces. The money changers, careful bookkeepers, and Italian bankers had no idea they were laying the first stones of what would one day become the global economy. They were simply trying to solve the practical challenges of everyday life. Yet those humble solutions quietly transformed the world. And perhaps, through Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, the greatest miracle lies not in the birth of banking itself, nor in the first florins or the earliest bills of exchange. The true miracle is that human beings learned to trust one another across the boundaries of distance and time. A promise could travel farther than a wagon filled with gold. A signature could cross mountains, rivers, and political borders. Once trust became humanity's most valuable possession, commerce ceased to be merely an exchange of goods. It became living proof that civilization is built not only upon precious metals, but upon the remarkable human capacity to place faith in one another. And perhaps that is the most enduring wealth history has ever created. Markets that changed with the seasons. If there is one lesson the medieval marketplace quietly teaches us, it is that life has never moved in a straight line. No market day was ever exactly like the one before it. No season carried quite the same fragrance, the same sounds, or the same quiet expectations. The marketplace transformed as wheat ripened into fields of gold. It changed again when the first cold winds of winter swept across the countryside. It quietly adjusted itself during the church's season of Lent, only to come alive once more during great festivals and the steady stream of pilgrims traveling along dusty roads. Watching these gentle transformations, we begin to understand that a marketplace reflected far more than the economy. It echoed the deepest rhythms of human life itself. Through Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, nature and the human soul have always shared a mysterious bond. He once wrote, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Beneath the seemingly unpredictable changes of the marketplace lay a hidden order, guided by the harvest, by faith, and by the timeless cycles of life. Imagine a late summer morning in an English village during the 13th century. The wheat fields have turned a rich golden color. Heavy bundles of grain are loaded onto wagons and carried toward the threshing floor. Everywhere, the cheerful laughter of farmers celebrates the end of months of patient labor. Only a few days later, the local marketplace suddenly grows far busier than usual. Fresh sacks of newly harvested grain appear alongside baskets of bright red apples, ripe pears, onions, turnips, wheels of cheese, and plump chickens displayed upon the market stalls. This is the season of harvest, a time when the marketplace itself seems to breathe a quiet sigh of relief after months of anticipation. Prices often become more stable as supplies increase. Buyers walk through the market with lighter hearts, while sellers carry renewed hope for a winter that will provide enough for their families. Yet perhaps the most remarkable change is not found in the goods themselves. It is found in a quiet sense of gratitude toward nature, a feeling that has accompanied humanity for thousands of years, long before the arrival of modern science. Carl Gustav Jung once observed, "Nature must not win the game, but she cannot lose." Human beings may build cities, invent currencies, and expand trade across continents. Yet in the end, they still bow before the rhythms of the natural world. A failed harvest could shake an entire economy. An abundant harvest could bring peace to thousands of households. Nature remained the marketplace's most silent and most powerful partner. Then winter arrives. The baskets of freshly gathered vegetables disappear. The ripe fruits and wild flowers of summer fade away. Market stalls gradually transform. Dried beans, onions stored for the cold months, Apples preserved in cellars, aged cheeses, salted fish, smoked meats, and sacks of grain become the most valuable commodities. Winter markets display fewer colors, yet they reveal something equally precious: the wisdom of preparation. Medieval people understood that winter was not a season for abundance, but a season for preserving what had already been gathered. This truth applied not only to food but also to the human spirit. Jung repeatedly emphasized that inner growth requires periods of stillness, just as nature must sleep beneath winter's snow before spring can return. The human soul also needs quiet seasons in which to restore itself. Perhaps this is why winter has always possessed such a distinctive beauty throughout history. It teaches patience. It gently reminds us that no season lasts forever. Today's scarcity is not the end of the story, it is simply one chapter within a far greater cycle. One of the most fascinating aspects of medieval marketplaces was the way they also changed during Lent. Throughout this sacred season, many Christians abstained from eating meat as they prepared for Easter. This spiritual practice produced visible changes throughout the marketplace. Fish, especially salted herring and preserved seafood, became highly sought after. Vegetables, beans, and other foods permitted during fasting appeared in greater abundance upon the market stalls. This reveals a deeply beautiful truth. Faith did not remain confined within the walls of the church. It stepped into the public square, entered the marketplace, and quietly influenced the way people bought and sold. Markets were shaped not only by supply and demand, but also by the spiritual values of the communities they served. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life." Religious faith gave profound meaning to many ordinary actions within medieval life. Even choosing what to eat on a particular day became part of one's spiritual journey. In this way, the marketplace became far more than a place of commerce. It became a place where cultural traditions and religious beliefs were naturally expressed through everyday life. As religious festivals approached, the atmosphere of the marketplace changed once again. Candlemakers prepared greater supplies. Tailors hurried to complete their finest garments. Bakers worked tirelessly to produce special breads and pastries for the celebrations. Merchants selling wine, spices, and meats found themselves busier than ever before. There is something quietly beautiful about these moments. Festivals did more than stimulate commerce, they created hope. After months of demanding labor, people needed opportunities to celebrate, to gather with loved ones, and to remember that life still held moments worth anticipating. Jung believed that rituals and symbols help human beings connect with the deepest layers of the collective unconscious. Religious festivals became moments when entire communities shared a common spiritual rhythm, and nowhere was that rhythm more visible than within the marketplace itself. Most remarkable of all were the great seasons of pilgrimage. As thousands of pilgrims journeyed toward sacred destinations, the roads suddenly filled with travelers. Inns remained open later into the evening. Merchants selling shoes, candles, bread, drinking water, and devotional souvenirs carefully prepared for the arriving crowds. A river of people seeking spiritual peace also created a vibrant current of commercial activity. Perhaps this is one of history's most beautiful paradoxes. People set out to nourish their souls, yet their journeys sustained countless other families along the way. Spiritual life and economic life were never truly opposed to one another. Instead, they complemented each other with quiet naturalness. Along these pilgrimage routes, monasteries also played an extraordinary role. Many people imagine monasteries solely as places of prayer, yet they also served as important economic centers. They owned farmland, mills, flocks of sheep, orchards, and broad agricultural estates. Monastic communities produced wool, cheese, ale, wine, honey, and many other goods that were sold in nearby marketplaces. Far from contradicting their spiritual calling, this reflected one of the Middle Ages' deepest philosophies. Labor itself could become a form of prayer. Monks cared not only for souls but also for the land entrusted to them, and They understood that before people could nourish the spirit, they first needed bread, clean water, and a stable community in which to live. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps the monasteries fulfilled this calling in their own quiet way. Rather than withdrawing completely from the world, they gently helped make it better through patient labor, learning, generosity, and faithful devotion. When we step back and observe the entire rhythm of the medieval marketplace, we begin to realize that it was never a cold machine, driven only by money. It resembled a living organism. It breathed with the changing seasons. It listened to the ringing of church bells. It transformed itself for festivals. It prepared carefully for winter and awakened joyfully when spring returned. Merchants, farmers, monks, and pilgrims all contributed to this living rhythm. Perhaps what makes these marketplaces so beautiful is not the wealth they generated, but the quiet reminder they offer. Everything in life has its own season. There will be times of abundance and times of scarcity. There will be moments to journey forward and moments to rest. There will be joyful celebrations and peaceful winter mornings filled with silence. Yet, just as Carl Jung gently reminded us, within every seeming disorder, there exists a hidden order. And when we learn to listen to that rhythm, we discover that not only the medieval marketplace, but our own lives as well, move gently through the invisible seasons of the human soul, the hardships of market day. When we imagine a medieval marketplace, our minds are often drawn to a colorful scene filled with bolts of cloth, fragrant spices, warm loaves of freshly baked bread, church bells echoing across the square, and the cheerful voices of buyers and sellers. Yet if we linger a little longer, allowing history's romantic glow to soften, a far more truthful picture begins to emerge. Behind all that bustling energy lay countless hardships faced by everyone who took part in market day. A sudden rainstorm could ruin an entire day's trade. A muddy road could delay a shipment for hours. A hastily erected stall might collapse beneath a powerful gust of wind. A single negotiation over price could determine whether a family ate well that evening or went to bed hungry. Even prices themselves, which appear to us as simple numbers, constantly shifted with the harvest, with war, and with forces entirely beyond human control. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, it is precisely within these ordinary difficulties that human character reveals itself most clearly. He once wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Long before those words were ever written, the merchants of medieval Europe seemed already to live by that quiet philosophy. Imagine an autumn morning in northern England. Dawn has barely begun to brighten the sky. A farmer loads baskets of eggs, several wheels of cheese, and bundles of late-season vegetables onto his aging wooden cart. His hope is simple: to reach the marketplace before the opening bell announces the beginning of trade. Yet, halfway there, the sky suddenly darkens. Heavy clouds gather overhead, and within moments a cold rain begins to fall. For us today, rain usually means opening an umbrella or waiting indoors until the shower passes. For a medieval merchant, however, rain could transform an entire day's livelihood. Dirt roads quickly dissolved into deep mud. Heavy sacks of wool absorbed water and became almost impossible to carry. Baskets of delicate fruit bruised beneath the jolting of the wagon. Cloth merchants hurried to cover their fabrics with waxed canvas. Bakers anxiously protected their loaves from dampness. Fishmongers silently hoped that the weather would not become so unpleasant that customers stayed home altogether. Rain showed no preference for wealth or poverty. It fell equally upon prosperous merchants and struggling farmers alike. In that sense, nature gently reminded everyone that before the immense power of the natural world, all people stood on equal ground. Carl Jung once wrote, There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Each storm throughout history resembles the trials that appear throughout our own lives. They do not arrive simply to punish us. They arrive to teach adaptation. Experienced merchants learn to wrap their goods in additional layers of waxed cloth. Farmers discovered the wisdom of leaving home earlier. Difficulty quietly became the teacher from which practical wisdom was born. After the rain came the mud. Today, it is difficult for many of us to imagine that mud was once among commerce's greatest enemies. Most medieval roads remained little more than packed earth. After only a few hours of rain, wagon wheels sank deeply into the softened ground. Pack horses strained with exhausting effort, taking one heavy step after another. A wagon loaded with grain might require hours simply to travel a few hundred meters. Mud did more than delay travelers. It damaged the goods themselves. Clay pots struck against one another and shattered. Eggs cracked inside their baskets. Fresh vegetables became coated with thick layers of dirt. Some merchants finally reached the marketplace only to discover that part of their cargo was no longer fit to sell. Yet despite all this, they continued their journeys, perhaps because they understood one very simple truth. If they stayed home today, there might be no bread for their families tomorrow. It was this quiet perseverance that slowly built the commercial foundations of medieval Europe. When they finally arrived at the marketplace, another challenge immediately awaited them: the construction of their stalls. Most medieval market stalls were not permanent shops. They consisted of little more than wooden planks, rough posts, a canvas covering, and a simple table assembled each market morning. Every seller built the stall at dawn and dismantled it again before returning home. A single strong wind could topple the entire structure. A steady rain might cause the fabric roof to sag under its own weight. A support post driven too shallow into the earth could leave the whole stall leaning dangerously. These market stalls were remarkably fragile. Yet, much like human life itself, what mattered was never that they lasted forever. What mattered was that each week they were raised once more. Carl Jung observed, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. Market vendors could never permanently eliminate rain or wind. They simply learned how to live alongside them. In much the same way, we cannot remove every uncertainty from our own lives, but we can grow strong enough that those uncertainties no longer define us." One of the most fascinating aspects of medieval marketplaces was the art of bargaining. Today, many stores display fixed prices. During the Middle Ages, however, the stated price was merely the beginning of a conversation. The seller praised the quality of the goods. The buyer pointed out every visible flaw. The seller described the long journey required to bring the merchandise. The buyer quietly insisted that only a few coins remained in his purse. These negotiations were never simply about money. They were subtle psychological exchanges. Jung devoted much of his work to understanding the social masks that people wear, which he called the persona. During every negotiation, both buyer and seller presented carefully chosen versions of themselves. The merchant appeared calm despite desperately hoping to make a sale. The customer pretended indifference despite secretly wanting the item all along. Yet in the end, what mattered most was sincerity. A merchant known for honesty rarely needed lengthy bargaining. A customer with a reputation for keeping promises often received fairer treatment. Reputation therefore carried greater value than a handful of silver coins. Then came the marketplace's most unpredictable challenge of all: changing prices. The cost of a sack of wheat today might differ entirely from its price the following week. A poor harvest in a neighboring county caused bread prices to rise. A delayed caravan left salt in short supply. A collapsed bridge made eastern spices suddenly scarce. Prices within the medieval marketplace resembled the flowing surface of a river. They were always moving. This reminds us that economics has never been separate from life itself. Every price reflected something happening beyond the marketplace. The weather, warfare, harvests, broken bridges, or interrupted trade routes. Carl Jung wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." At first glance, market fluctuations appear chaotic. Yet careful observation reveals the quiet patterns beneath them. Good harvests lowered prices. Safe roads increased supply. Religious festivals created greater demand. Every part of life remained connected to every other. Perhaps this is the greatest beauty of the medieval marketplace. It was never perfect. There was always rain. There was always mud. There were crooked stalls, long negotiations, days when prices left both merchants and customers sighing with disappointment. Yet despite everything, the market continued. People still came. The farmer still carried his baskets of eggs. The blacksmith still laid freshly forged knives upon the table. The baker still lit the oven before sunrise. The storyteller still sang in the middle of the square. Perhaps this is what makes history so deeply moving. Not because life was easier then than it is today, but because people continued walking forward, even when their boots were already covered in mud. And as evenings slowly settled over the marketplace, the rain at last began to fade. Pools of water reflected the warm colors of the setting sun. Merchants packed away their goods. Wooden wheels rolled slowly along the road back toward their villages. Some had sold everything. Others had earned very little. A few returned home nearly empty-handed. Yet with the next dawn, they would rise once again, harness their horses, load their wagons, and set out for the following market day. Perhaps, through the eyes of Carl Gustav Jung, this is the most enduring strength of humanity. Not our ability to avoid hardship, but our quiet determination to carry hope with us, even when the road ahead remains covered with mud after the rain. The marketplace, a mirror of human nature. As our journey through the medieval marketplaces gradually draws to its close, perhaps it is time to stop looking at the stalls, the coins, and the dusty roads, and instead turn our attention toward what has quietly existed behind them all along. A marketplace was never merely a place where goods changed hands. It was a place where people encountered themselves. Every transaction became a test of trust. Every handshake balanced honesty against self-interest. Every negotiation reflected the hopes, fears, ambitions, and quiet longings carried within the human heart. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, none of this is accidental. A marketplace is, in many ways, a living image of the collective unconscious, where humanity's oldest archetypes, the merchant, the traveler, the protector, the trickster, the laborer, the healer stand side by side within a single shared space. We imagine ourselves observing history, yet perhaps history has quietly been observing us all along. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Nowhere does this seem more visible than within a medieval marketplace. On the surface, people gathered simply to buy and sell. Beneath that surface, however, every individual carried invisible motivations. Some came seeking survival. Others pursued ambition. Some searched for opportunity. Others simply hoped to keep a promise made to their families that they would return home with enough bread for another evening. The very first thing a marketplace demanded was trust. A farmer placed a basket of eggs upon a wooden table, believing the buyer would pay the agreed price. A merchant arriving from distant lands unpacked valuable bolts of cloth, trusting that neither thieves nor dishonest traders would deprive him of his livelihood. The customer likewise trusted that the merchant's scales had not been altered, and that hidden flaws had not been concealed beneath an attractive appearance. It is remarkable to realize that an entire economic system rested upon something so completely invisible. No one can hold trust in the palm of a hand as one holds a silver coin. Yet the moment trust disappears, every coin loses part of its value. In Jungian psychology, trust is more than an emotion. It is the bridge that allows human beings to leave the isolation of the individual and enter the shared life of a community. If every person viewed the world only as a place of danger, no society could ever have emerged. The medieval marketplace stands as one of history's clearest demonstrations of this truth. Yet wherever trust exists, greed inevitably follows. The history of medieval markets is filled with stories of false weights, watered-down ale, merchants who secretly withheld goods to drive prices upward, and speculators who hoarded grain during years of famine. Jung never regarded humanity's darker impulses as something to deny or suppress. Instead, he taught that every individual carries within them a shadow. He wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." The greed found in the marketplace was simply another expression of that shadow. It did not belong only to dishonest merchants. It existed within everyone. The difference lay only in whether a person possessed enough courage to recognize it and enough discipline to restrain it. Perhaps this explains why medieval marketplaces relied so heavily upon laws, inspectors, judges, and public punishment. Not because people were inherently evil, but because society understood that even good people require boundaries if they are not to be guided by the darker parts of themselves. Yet history itself was never built by greed. It was built by fairness. A marketplace could survive only if sellers believed they would receive just payment, while buyers believed they were receiving honest value in return. Fairness did not require perfection. It required confidence that the same rules applied to everyone. A loaf of bread weighing exactly what it promised. A length of cloth matching the quality it claimed. A dispute settled before the traveling merchant departed for the next fair. These may appear to be very small acts of justice, yet it was precisely these ordinary acts that sustained European commerce for centuries. Jung once observed, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." A pair of honest scales may seem insignificant beside the walls of a magnificent castle. Yet those scales may well have contributed more to civilization than we often imagine. Still, human society survives through more than law alone. It survives through cooperation. No single merchant created the great champagne fairs. No shepherd transformed raw wool into finished cloth entirely by himself. No banker could operate a system of credit without scribes, couriers, and merchants who honored their promises. The medieval marketplace gathered thousands of strangers who cooperated despite having never met before. That alone was a remarkable psychological achievement. Jung described something similar through the idea of the collective unconscious. Not because every individual thinks alike, but because all human beings share ancient patterns of trust, exchange, responsibility, and survival. A handshake between two merchants from different kingdoms lasted only a few seconds. Behind that brief gesture, however, stood thousands of years of human evolution shaping our extraordinary capacity for cooperation. From that cooperation emerged something even more valuable than wealth itself: honor. In many medieval towns, a merchant who lost his reputation had effectively lost his career. Failure might be forgiven. Betrayal rarely was. Honor became a form of wealth that could not be locked inside a chest. It could not be weighed upon a balance. It could not be purchased with gold. Yet it determined whether a person would continue to belong within the community. Jung wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." Perhaps the most respected merchants were never those who had never experienced temptation. Rather, they were those who understood the temptation perfectly and still chose integrity. Beneath all these higher values remained humanity's oldest instinct: survival. The farmer carrying a basket of eggs to market did not dream primarily of becoming wealthy. The baker did not rise before dawn merely because he loved his craft. The blacksmith did not spend endless hours before a blazing forge simply because he admired the sound of his hammer. Each worked because families needed food, because winter was approaching, because tomorrow would arrive regardless. Survival remained the deepest foundation of every marketplace. Yet what distinguishes human beings from every other creature is not the instinct to survive. It is our ability to transform survival into civilization. We created laws. We built trust. We cultivated honor. We learned cooperation. We transformed the exchange of goods into the exchange of ideas, cultures, and hope itself. For this reason, through Jung's perspective, the medieval marketplace becomes far more than a physical location. It becomes a symbol of the collective unconscious itself. There stands the hero in the merchant brave enough to cross dangerous seas, the wise old man in the monk and the storyteller, the great mother in the women whose bread nourished entire communities, the trickster in the dishonest trader, the shadow within human greed, and the emerging self in every individual choosing integrity over deception. Perhaps that explains why, after more than 7 centuries, these marketplaces continue to move us, not because they displayed extraordinary goods, but because they reveal a truth that has never changed. The people of the 13th century and the people of the 21st century still wrestle with the same inner conflicts between selfishness and generosity, fear and hope, greed and honor. And as evening gently settles across the marketplace, the final church bell echoes over the square. Stalls are slowly dismantled. Coins disappear into leather purses. Honest scales are carefully packed away. Footprints gradually fade into the well-worn earth after another long day of trade. Yet what remains is not the merchandise that was sold, nor the money that was earned. What remains is the memory of thousands of encounters, thousands of handshakes, thousands of small choices that quietly shaped an entire civilization. Perhaps Carl Jung himself would have smiled upon such a scene, for he understood that the truest mirror of the human soul is not always found within the halls of kings or the libraries of philosophers. Sometimes it is found in something as ordinary as a marketplace, where humanity's collective unconscious quietly reveals itself through every exchange, every glance, every promise kept, and every act of trust freely given between strangers. The legacy of medieval marketplaces. After a long journey along cobblestone streets, across weathered wooden bridges, through bustling market days, beneath the ringing bells that announced the opening of trade, past lively bargaining, the swift judgments of the pie-powder court, and the wagons laden with wool, salt, and precious spices, we have finally arrived at the end of our story. Yet, like every journey through history, the ending is never truly an ending, for the marketplaces of the Middle Ages never completely disappeared. They continue to live on in the public squares of modern cities, along vibrant shopping streets, within the world's financial centers, and even in the countless ways people connect with one another today. Through the eyes of Carl Gustav Jung, we begin to see that the greatest legacy these marketplaces left behind was not their stone walls or ancient coins, but an enduring symbol of the collective unconscious, a place where humanity's desire to connect, exchange, and create has been passed from one generation to the next. One of the most remarkable contributions of medieval marketplaces was their ability to spread fashion. Today, we often think of fashion as something created by celebrated designers or iconic cities like Paris and Milan. Yet centuries earlier, great fairs such as those of Champagne quietly fulfilled that very role. A merchant might arrive with a newly woven fabric from Flanders. A skilled dyer could introduce a rare shade of indigo brought from the East. An elegant piece of Italian silk might appear in a quiet French village. Within only a few market seasons, new styles of dress would spread to neighboring towns and eventually across entire regions. Every item carried more than material value. It carried a new way of seeing beauty. It reminds us that from the earliest days of civilization, human beings have longed to express themselves through outward symbols. Jung believed that symbols are the language of the soul, and clothing is one such symbol. It does more than protect the body, it tells the story of one's community, profession, social standing, and personal identity. But medieval marketplaces accomplished far more than spreading fashion. They were where entirely new goods first appeared, before the curious eyes of ordinary Europeans. A tiny peppercorn from the east could become the talk of an entire town. A newly discovered dye might transform an entire textile industry. An ingenious metal tool could make a craftsman's work more efficient than ever before. These objects crossed mountains, sailed across seas, traveled alongside merchant caravans, and eventually found their place upon humble wooden stalls in crowded market squares. Every object carried with it a story of courageous merchants, months-long journeys, and humanity's endless desire to expand the boundaries of knowledge. Yet the most valuable thing exchanged in the marketplace was never merchandise. It was ideas. Perhaps a blacksmith learned a new forging technique simply by watching another craftsman from a distant land. Perhaps an Italian merchant demonstrated a more efficient method of bookkeeping. Perhaps a monk carried handwritten manuscripts, preserving the wisdom of ancient Greece and Rome. No one can say exactly how those conversations shaped history, but we know that knowledge has always traveled fastest when people meet face to face. Jung once observed, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Every encounter in the marketplace had the potential to create such a transformation. After parting ways, neither person remained quite the same as before. For this reason, medieval marketplaces helped unite Europe long before the very idea of a unified Europe ever existed. Trade routes connected England with Flanders, Champagne with northern Italy, and the Mediterranean ports with the Baltic Sea, creating a vast network that today might be compared to the circulatory system of an entire continent. Goods traveled along those roads, but so did languages, customs, artistic traditions, religious beliefs, and stories from distant lands. A merchant who had never opened a book could nevertheless come to understand the wider world far better than someone who had spent an entire lifetime within the boundaries of a single village. Carl Jung believed that beneath every culture lie universal archetypes shared by all humanity. When people from different lands met one another, they exchanged not only their differences but also discovered the profound similarities hidden beneath them. Medieval marketplaces quietly became places where diverse cultures realized they belonged to a much larger human family. Though they spoke different languages, they all understood the value of a promise, the meaning of a handshake, and the importance of a fair exchange. It is hardly surprising that cities gradually grew from these marketplaces. At first there were only a handful of temporary stalls standing upon an open field. Soon came inns to welcome weary travelers. Then bakeries, blacksmiths' workshops, permanent shops, warehouses, churches, and town halls followed. As the years passed, protective walls rose around these growing communities. Small villages slowly became thriving towns. Dirt paths evolved into broad streets. River crossings developed into busy ports. Everything began with one remarkably simple human need: the desire to meet, the desire to exchange. Perhaps this is the greatest legacy medieval marketplaces have left behind. They remind us that civilization is not built primarily through war. It is built through encounters, not by swords, but by hands extended in goodwill. Carl Jung once wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." Although he spoke of the human spirit, his words also offer a profound reflection on history itself. Empires may expand through military strength, but only cooperation and trust possess the power to sustain a civilization across generations. The marketplaces of medieval Europe stand as one of history's clearest testaments to that enduring truth. The legacy of medieval marketplaces. If we look more deeply through the lens of symbolism, the medieval marketplace becomes more than a place of commerce. It becomes a reflection of the human soul itself. Within each of us exists a marketplace filled with countless stalls, Memories, dreams, fears, hopes, compassion, and even the darker aspects of ourselves that Carl Gustav Jung called the shadow. Every day, we quietly negotiate between reason and emotion, instinct and morality, between what we desire and what we know we ought to do. In that sense, the marketplace belongs not only to history, it is also a profound metaphor for our inner lives. And then, like every market day, the final day slowly comes to its close. The sun gradually sinks behind rows of stone buildings. The golden light of evening washes over the bolts of fabric still hanging from the market stalls. The baker carefully covers the last loaves of bread with clean linen cloths. The blacksmith extinguishes the forge that has glowed bright since dawn. Farmers secure sacks of grain onto the backs of their horses before beginning the slow journey home to their villages. The cheerful voices that filled the square throughout the day gradually give way to the quiet footsteps of those returning home across worn cobblestones. In the center of the square, the church bell rings once more, no longer announcing the opening of another trading day. Instead, it gently reminds everyone that every chapter, no matter how beautiful, must eventually come to an end. Wooden doors slowly close. Oil lamps begin to glow behind small windows. Far in the distance, the sound of horses' hooves fades into the evening silence. A cool breeze drifts through the empty square, carrying with it the scent of grass, weathered timber, and the lingering aroma of freshly baked bread. As night softly settles over streets that only hours before had been alive with activity, the marketplace seems to fall into a peaceful sleep, its purpose for the day fulfilled. Somewhere within the darkness, perhaps the memory of thousands of meetings, thousands of promises, and thousands of stories still quietly rests among those ancient stones. And we, having completed this journey through history, may also close our eyes with the comforting realization that for centuries, what truly connected people was never simply the goods they exchanged. It was trust, generosity, and the shared hope of building a better world together. In the gentle stillness of the night, let the distant church bells blend with the rhythm of your breathing, allowing your thoughts to drift peacefully into deep and restful sleep, as though that medieval marketplace still rests quietly beneath a sky filled with stars hundreds of years ago. Before the night fully settles over the cobblestone streets of medieval Europe, take one final moment to reflect upon the journey we have shared together. We began in humble villages where small wagons loaded with vegetables, wheat, and cheese rolled through the morning light. We wandered into bustling marketplaces, where church bells marked the beginning of another day of trade, where farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and travelers gathered not only to exchange goods, but also stories, knowledge, and hopes for a better life. Together we witnessed royal charters that transformed the fortunes of entire towns, the great champagne fairs that connected Northern Europe with the Mediterranean, trade routes stretching for hundreds of miles, the swift judgments of the pie-powder courts, bakers carefully weighing every loaf to preserve the trust of their communities, and wandering performers who filled busy market days with music and laughter. Viewed from the outside, these are simply chapters of history. But if we look more deeply, as Carl Gustav Jung always encouraged us to do, we discover that history is also a mirror reflecting the human soul. Medieval marketplaces were never merely stories about commerce or economics. They were stories about ourselves. Within them flowed two currents that still exist today. On one side stood greed, competition, and the fear of scarcity. On the other stood trust, cooperation, and the enduring hope of building a thriving community. Centuries have passed, yet that conversation continues within every human heart. Jung reminded us that our greatest task is not to conquer the outer world, but to understand the inner one. He wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." Perhaps that is the greatest gift medieval marketplaces leave behind. They remind us that every encounter with another person is also an encounter with ourselves. Every act of honesty strengthens our own character. Every promise we keep builds an invisible bridge between ourselves and our community. Every choice of fairness over deception lays another small stone in the foundation of civilization. What is truly remarkable is that although our world has changed beyond anything those medieval merchants could have imagined, we still live according to many of the same principles born in those ancient marketplaces. We still buy and sell. We still exchange ideas. We still seek connection. We still search for trust among strangers. Only the setting has changed. The dirt roads have become the internet. Horse-drawn wagons have become trains and airplanes. The merchants' calls have become digital signals traveling across the globe in an instant. Yet within the collective unconscious that Jung described, humanity remains profoundly the same. We still long to be heard, to be respected, to be trusted, to belong. Perhaps that is why history has such a remarkable ability to soothe the soul. It reminds us that the worries we carry today are not entirely new. The medieval merchant worried about tomorrow's journey. The farmer feared a failed harvest. The craftsman hoped customers would appreciate the work of his hands. Time continued to flow, just as rivers flowed beneath ancient stone bridges. Generations came and went. Yet humanity's longing to live, to love, and to hope has never disappeared. Perhaps that is why history brings such quiet comfort. It reminds us that every hardship eventually becomes a memory. Every anxiety eventually settles, like the dust that falls over the marketplace after the day's trading has ended. What remains is not the coins that changed hands. What remains are the footprints people leave behind along the journey of life. Now imagine that the sky above the marketplace has turned a deep shade of blue. The final glow of sunset disappears behind the old tiled rooftops. Merchants slowly fold the cloth canopies above their stalls. The sound of wooden wagon wheels rolling across the stone streets grows fainter with every passing moment. One by one, oil lamps illuminate the small windows, casting warm golden circles of light into the gathering darkness. Far away, the church bell rings for the final time that day, not urgently, not to summon anyone, but gently, like a blessing of peace for all who have finished another day's work. The horses are led back to their stables. The dogs curl up beside the warmth of the hearth. The children have long since fallen asleep. The cool night breeze drifts softly across the square, carrying the scent of timber, dried grass, and the gentle chill of the evening mist. The marketplace that only hours ago echoed with voices now rests in remarkable silence. Only the moon quietly bathes the rooftops, the closed market stalls, and the stone road that has carried countless footsteps across the centuries. Perhaps by now your own eyes have begun to grow heavy. Your breathing has become slower. The thoughts of the day gradually dissolve like morning mist over an open field. Allow every image of the medieval marketplace to slowly drift away into the distance, like a beautiful dream gently fading with the night. There are no more negotiations, no hurried footsteps, only the peaceful embrace of history quietly surrounding your mind. Thank you for joining me on this slow and gentle journey. I hope these stories have not only helped you discover a remarkable chapter of history, but have also encouraged you to listen more closely to your own inner world, allowing each evening to become a peaceful pause amid the busyness of modern life. If you enjoy exploring history through the psychological insights of Carl Gustav Jung, and if these calm, reflective stories help you relax and drift peacefully to sleep, please consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like, and turning on notifications so you won't miss our future journeys. Every subscription is a meaningful encouragement, allowing this channel to continue sharing thoughtful, slow-paced, and inspiring historical stories night after night. And now, our journey has come to its end. Relax your shoulders, gently close your eyes, take one slow, deep breath in, and slowly breathe out. Let the distant bells of the medieval marketplace blend with the rhythm of your breathing. Allow the ancient stone streets, the warm glow of oil lamps, and the star-filled sky to quietly fade into the night. May you enjoy a peaceful evening. May your dreams be gentle and beautiful. And when morning comes, may you awaken with a lighter heart, a calmer mind, and renewed strength for the day ahead. Good night.